Hi guys, the night air is soft above the Nile. Far from the noise of the modern world, the river moves slowly through darkness. The water slips past reeds and quiet banks. Small waves touch the muddy shore and then disappear again. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once and then falls silent. The stars shine clearly overhead. Ancient Egypt rests beneath them. Most homes are dark now. Oil lamps have been put out. Fires have burned low. Families sleep close together inside mud brick walls that still hold some warmth from the long day. The desert beyond the river waits in silence. The fields wait too. Soon the first pale light of morning will spread across the eastern horizon. Soon workers will wake. Soon another ordinary day will begin. And for most Egyptians, ordinary days filled almost every part of life. When many people think about ancient Egypt, they imagine great pyramids, golden treasures, and powerful kings. They picture enormous statues standing beneath the desert sun. But those things belong to only a very small number of people. Most Egyptians lived very different lives. Their days were simple. Their choices were limited. Their routines changed little from one season to the next. The world around them felt steady, predictable, and controlled. People knew where they belonged. They knew what work awaited them each morning. They knew what officials expected from them. They knew what beauties could not be ignored. Life flowed like the Nile itself. Slow. Regular. Endless. And tonight we step quietly into that world. The first light of dawn begins to appear. Inside a small mud brick house, a family stirs from sleep. The home is simple. The walls are rough but strong. The roof is made from wooden beams covered with reeds and mud. The rooms are small. There is little furniture. Most people do not sleep in soft beds. Many sleep on woven mats spread across the floor. The air inside the house feels warm even before sunrise. A mother wakes first. She sits quietly for a moment. Outside, the village remains mostly silent. Then she stands and begins another day. She moves carefully so she will not wake everyone at once. Nearby, clay jars hold water brought from the river. Baskets contain grain collected from previous harvests. Simple tools rest against the wall. Nothing here is luxurious. Nothing is wasted. Every object serves a purpose. Life requires work. And work begins early. The father rises next. Years of labor have shaped his body. His hands are rough. His shoulders are strong. His face already shows signs of age, though he is not old. The sun, the wind, and long hours in the fields leave their marks on nearly everyone. He steps outside. The air feels cooler now than it will later. This is one of the best moments of the day. The sky glows gently above the horizon. Birds begin calling from the reeds. The Nile reflects streaks of pale gold. For a few quiet minutes, everything feels peaceful. Soon the heat will arrive. Soon the work will begin. But not yet. The village slowly awakens. Doors open. People emerge from homes. Children rub sleep from their eyes. Neighbors greet one another. Sandals scrape softly against dusty ground. A donkey brays somewhere nearby. The smell of baking bread begins to drip through the air. Bread is one of the most important foods in Egypt. Almost every family depends on it. The process begins long before breakfast. Grain must be harvested, then dried, then ground. Women often spend hours crushing grain into flour using heavy grinding stones. It is difficult work. The movement repeats again and again. Day after day. Year after year. Fine dust fills the air. Tiny particles settle on skin and clothing. Many workers breathe this dust throughout their lives. Still, the work continues. The bread must be made. Without bread, families cannot eat. Without labor, bread cannot exist. Simple truths shape daily life. A woman kneels beside a small oven. The fire crackles softly. Heat spreads into the morning air. She shapes dough with practiced hands. Soon flat loaves begin baking. Their smell spreads through the neighborhood. People passing nearby recognize the scent immediately. It is familiar, comforting, part of everyday existence. Nearby, a young boy prepares to follow his father into the fields. He is not yet fully grown. But childhood in ancient Egypt often includes responsibility from an early age. There are animals to care for, water to carry, tasks to complete. Work surrounds everyone. The village sits close to fertile farmland. These fields owe their existence to the Nile. Without the river, much of Egypt would be dry desert. With the river comes life. The annual flooding brings rich soil. Crops grow where otherwise little could survive. Because of this, farmers carefully watch the river. Its behavior affects nearly every aspect of life. A good flood can bring prosperity. A poor flood can bring hardship. Many people feel their future depends on forces beyond their control. The river gives, the river takes, and everyone waits. As sunlight spreads across the landscape, workers begin moving toward the fields. Some carry simple tools. Others lead animals. Dust rises beneath their feet. The road is busy now. Yet no one rushes. The pace feels steady, measured, familiar. This journey has happened countless times before. It will happen countless times again. The fields stretch outward beside irrigation channels. Water glimmers beneath the growing sunlight. Farmers begin their tasks. Some clear weeds. Others guide animals pulling plows. Others inspect young crops. Hours pass slowly. The sun climbs higher. Heat settles over the land. Sweat forms quickly. Clothing sticks to skin. The air becomes heavy. Yet work continues. There are few alternatives. The crops must survive. The harvest must come. Families depend upon it. Officials depend upon it. The kingdom depends upon it. In ancient Egypt, life is not entirely free. There are rules, expectations, obligations. People owe labor. People owe taxes. People owe service. Government officials keep records. Scribes write reports. Administrators monitor supplies. The system reaches into villages across the land. Many ordinary workers may never meet powerful rulers. Yet royal authority still shapes their daily lives. A farmer bending over a field might never see the king. Still, the king's influence touches the grain he grows, the taxes he pays, and the duties he performs. Control exists quietly, constantly, like a shadow resting beside everyday life. Not always harsh, not always visible, but always present. Far away from the fields, another Egyptian begins his day. He is a scribe. His work is different. His hands are smoother than those of most farmers. His body bears different signs of labor. He spends long hours sitting. Long hours reading and writing. Education is valuable. Not everyone can become a scribe. Learning requires time and opportunity. Most children never receive extensive schooling. Those who do often enter a world of records, accounts, and administration. Inside a government office, the scribe sits near open windows. Light enters the room. Sheets of papyrus rest nearby. Brushes and ink await use. He carefully records information. Amounts of grain. Lists of workers. Deliveries of supplies. Everything must be counted. Everything must be tracked. The Egyptian state values order. Records help maintain that order. Numbers fill documents. Names fill documents. Details fill documents. While farmers work beneath the sun, scribes quietly preserve information. Their labor supports the system that organizes the kingdom. Outside, the day grows hotter. The village roads become quieter. Most people are already working. Only a few remain near home. Some women continue preparing food. Others care for children. Others weave cloth or repair household items. Every task matters. Every task contributes to survival. The simplicity of daily life does not mean life is easy. Work follows nearly everyone from sunrise to sunset. A woman carries water from the Nile. The jar is heavy. The path is familiar. She has walked it many times before. The river sparkles beneath the bright sky. Fishermen move across the water in small boats. Their lives follow rhythms of their own. They know where fish gather. They know how currents behave. They know how weather affects the river. Fishing provides food for many families. It also creates work that never truly ends. Nets require repair. Boats require maintenance. Daily effort remains constant. The fishermen pull steadily against their oars. Water drips quietly from wooden paddles. The river moves beneath them. Birds circle overhead. The world feels wide and calm. Yet their success depends on skill and patience. Just as farmers depend on soil. Just as merchants depend on trade. Just as scribes depend on records. Everyone occupies a place within a larger system. And the system expects cooperation. As afternoon approaches, heat presses down heavily across the landscape. Shadows shorten. Workers seek brief moments of relief whenever possible. Some sit beneath trees. Some rest beside walls. Some drink water and wipe sweat from their faces. The air shimmers above the ground. Even breathing feels slower. The desert sun allows little escape. Yet the workday is not finished. Far from the villages, construction workers labor on government projects. Some cut stone. Some transport materials. Some shape blocks for buildings. Popular imagination often focuses on giant monuments. Yet behind every monument stand thousands of ordinary workers. Many spend years performing physically demanding tasks. They lift, pull, carry, shape, repeat. Their bodies absorb the cost. Their muscles ache. Their joints stiffen. Their energy fades by evening. But each morning the work begins again. The workers rest briefly beside unfinished stone. Dust covers their skin. Their clothing shows signs of hard labor. They share food. Simple bread. Vegetables. Beer made from grain. The meal is modest. Still, it provides strength. Conversations remain quiet. Many workers conserve energy. The afternoon stretches onward. Time passes slowly beneath the relentless sun. Back in the villages, children play when opportunities appear. Even simple games offer moments of happiness. A child laughs. Another runs through a dusty alley. For a short while, responsibility feels distant. Yet adulthood arrives early. Before long, many children will join the routines that define Egyptian life. Work. Family. Obligation. Repetition. The cycle continues across generations. As sunlight gradually softens, activity begins to change. Workers start returning home. The roads fill once more. Dust rises beneath tired feet. Faces appear worn from long hours. Bodies move more slowly. The day's labor settles heavily upon shoulders and backs. Yet there is comfort in returning home. Familiar walls. Familiar voices. Familiar meals. A farmer reaches his house. His sandals scrape softly against the floor. Children greet him. The smell of food fills the room. Outside, the sky begins turning orange. The heat finally loosens its grip. Evening arrives like a gentle gift. Families gather together. Meals remain simple. Bread, vegetables, perhaps fish, perhaps fruit when available. No feast awaits most people. But food shared among family carries its own quiet value. Conversations drip through the room. Stories are exchanged. Daily concerns are discussed. Plans are made for tomorrow. Tomorrow will resemble today. And the day after that will resemble tomorrow. Predictability shapes life. The structure can feel comforting. Yet it can also feel restrictive. Many people possess little ability to change their circumstances. Birth often determines opportunity. Family determines occupation. Authority determines obligation. The system remains stable partly because movement between social positions is limited. Most people stay where they begin. The farmer remains a farmer. The laborer remains a laborer. The servant remains a servant. The kingdom functions through this order. Control is woven into everyday existence. Not always through force. Often through expectation. Tradition. Routine. Custom. People know what is required. And most fulfill those requirements because life depends on doing so. Night slowly settles over the Nile. Darkness spreads across the fields. The roads grow quiet. Workshops close. Boats return to shore. Animals settle into their resting places. One by one, lamps begin glowing inside homes. Small points of light appear across the village. The air cools gently. At last, people can breathe more comfortably. A family sits together beneath the evening sky. Stars emerge overhead. Children grow sleepy. Adults feel the deep exhaustion of physical labor. The sounds of the village soften. Conversations become quieter. The world begins preparing for rest. And somewhere beyond the fields, beyond the villages, beyond the riverbanks, officials continue maintaining records, collecting information, and organizing the countless lives that make up ancient Egypt. Most people never see the full machinery of the state. Yet they live within it every day. Their labor feeds it. Their taxes support it. Their obedience sustains it. Simple lives. Ordered lives. Lives shaped by both the gifts of the Nile and the expectations of authority. And as the night deepens above the river, another ordinary day slowly comes to an end. The water continues its quiet journey through the darkness. The stars continue their patient watch. And inside thousands of mud-brick homes, tired workers close their eyes and drift toward sleep, knowing that when dawn returns, the rhythms of ancient Egypt will begin once more. The night passes quietly over the Nile. The river moves beneath the moonlight, smooth and patient, as if it has all the time in the world. Reeds sway gently along the banks. Palm trees stand dark against the silver sky. In the villages, most lamps have burned out, and only a few faint lights remain behind mud-brick walls. Inside one small house, a family sleeps close together. The room is simple and warm. A woven mat covers part of the floor. Clay jars stand in the corner. The air smells faintly of dust, grain, and the fading smoke from the evening fire. Outside, a donkey shifts its weight and settles again. Long before sunrise, the mother wakes first. She sits quietly for a moment, listening to the stillness. Then she rises and begins the first tasks of another day. Water must be fetched. Grain must be prepared. Bread must be baked before the heat grows too strong. The routine is so familiar that she barely needs to think about it. This is how life moves in ancient Egypt. Days do not change quickly. Seasons matter more than years. The river, the crops, and the demands of work shape nearly everything. She steps outside into the cool darkness. The stars are fading now. In the east, the horizon is beginning to pale. Other women emerge from nearby homes carrying empty jars. Soft greetings pass between them as they walk toward the river. The Nile is calm at this hour. Its surface reflects the first hints of dawn. The women kneel at the bank and fill their jars carefully. The water is heavy, but they lift it with practiced strength. They have done this since childhood. As they return through the village, more people begin waking. Roosters call. Doors open. Sandals scrape against dusty ground. The smell of fresh bread slowly spreads through the air. Bread is the center of most meals. It is eaten in the morning, at midday, and in the evening. Along with bread, many people drink beer made from barley or emmer grain. The beer is thick and mild, and it provides both nourishment and water. In one house, a father prepares to leave for the fields. He wraps a simple linen cloth around his waist and shoulders. His son follows him outside, carrying a small tool. The boy is still young, but he is already learning the work that will likely define his future. They walk toward the farmland beside the Nile. The sky brightens gradually. Birds rise from the reeds. The air is still cool enough to feel pleasant on the skin. The fields stretch outward in neat plots divided by irrigation channels. Water glimmers softly in the early light. Farmers move through the rows of crops, checking the soil and preparing for the day's labor. Agriculture is the foundation of Egyptian life. Most people depend on it directly or indirectly. Wheat and barley are the most important crops, but farmers also grow vegetables, flax, and fruit. Flax is especially valuable because it is used to make linen cloth, which Egyptians wear in the hot climate. The father and son begin working together. They loosen soil, remove weeds, and guide water into the right channels. The work is repetitive and physical. Bending, lifting, digging, and carrying continue for hours. The sun climbs higher. Heat spreads across the land. Sweat darkens the linen clothing. Dust clings to skin and hair. Yet there is little complaint. This is simply the nature of life. In ancient Egypt, survival depends on steady labor. Crops must grow. Animals must be cared for. Taxes must be paid. Families must eat. A short distance away, another group of workers tends livestock. Goats bleat softly. Cattle move slowly through the fields. Herdsmen watch them carefully, carrying staffs and wearing broad smiles only occasionally beneath the weight of the day. Animals are important for many reasons. They provide meat, milk, leather, and labor. Oxen help pull plows and transport heavy loads. Donkeys carry goods along dusty roads between villages and markets. By mid-morning, the heat becomes stronger. The father pauses briefly to drink water from a clay jar. His son sits beside him in the shade of a small tree. They eat a little bread and rest for a few moments before returning to work. Nearby, irrigation workers open and close small channels to control the flow of water. The Nile's flooding is both a gift and a responsibility. Too much water can damage fields. Too little can ruin crops. The Egyptian state pays close attention to these matters. Officials monitor harvests, organize labor, and collect taxes, often in the form of grain. Scribes record everything carefully on papyrus. In a town not far away, a scribe sits inside a cool administrative building. The room is shaded from the harsh sun. Open windows allow a slight breeze to enter. The scribe wears clean linen and sits cross-legged with writing tools beside him. He dips a reed brush into ink and writes neatly across a sheet of papyrus. Lists of grain deliveries. Records of workers. Inventories of supplies. Names and numbers fill the page. His work is quiet, but it carries authority. Written records help maintain order throughout the kingdom. They allow officials to track resources and enforce obligations. Education has given him a different kind of life from that of the farmers. He still works long hours, but his labor is intellectual rather than physical. Even so, the system shapes him too. He serves the administration, and his position depends on obedience and skill. Outside, the town is busy with merchants and craftsmen. A potter shapes clay on a simple wheel. His hands move steadily as the vessel takes form. Nearby, a weaver works at a loom, creating linen cloth thread by thread. Workshops are crowded and warm. The smell of clay, dye, wood, and sweat fills the air. Apprentices learn from older craftsmen, repeating the same techniques for years until they become skilled themselves. Trade moves through the streets as well. Merchants sell grain, fish, vegetables, cloth, and small household items. Transactions are usually based on barter or measured quantities rather than coins, especially in earlier periods of Egyptian history. The marketplace is lively but not chaotic. People know one another. Villages and towns are tightly connected communities. News spreads through conversation, travelers, and officials carrying messages. As the afternoon approaches, the heat becomes almost overwhelming. The sun blazes high above the desert. Shadows shrink. Many workers slow their pace slightly to conserve energy. In the fields, farmers continue their tasks despite exhaustion. Their bodies are accustomed to the climate, but the heat still drains strength. Water breaks become essential. Some workers wrap cloth around their heads for protection from the sun. Others seek brief moments of shade beside walls, trees, or storage buildings. At a construction site farther south, laborers haul stone blocks along wooden sledges. Teams pull together while overseers coordinate the effort. The work is heavy and demanding, requiring strength, endurance, and cooperation. These workers are not always slaves, as is often imagined. Many are laborers fulfilling state obligations or seasonal workers employed on royal projects. Still, their lives are difficult, and the labor leaves lasting strain on their bodies. Dust rises around them. The sound of ropes creaking and men calling to one another echoes through the hot air. Far away in the capital, powerful officials and the royal court enjoy a very different world of spacious homes, servants, and fine goods. Yet even there, life is organized around hierarchy and duty. Ancient Egypt is a deeply structured society. At the top stands the pharaoh, regarded as both ruler and divine figure. Beneath him are nobles, priests, and high officials. Then come scribes, craftsmen, merchants, farmers, and laborers. Movement between these levels is limited. A talented person might rise through education or service, but most people remain within the social position into which they are born. This creates stability, but it also creates control. People know their place. Expectations are clear. The system rewards obedience and continuity. Religion reinforces this order as well. Egyptians believe that harmony, balance, and proper behavior are essential to the world. The concept of ma'at order and balance guides both personal conduct and government. Chaos is feared. Stability is valued. For ordinary people, this means fulfilling duties faithfully. A farmer tends his fields. A scribe keeps accurate records. A priest performs rituals. A servant obeys instructions. Each role is part of the larger order. As the sun finally begins to lower, relief slowly spreads across the land. The worst heat of the day starts to fade. Workers straighten their backs and prepare to return home. The long afternoon has left them tired and dusty. The father and son walk back through the village carrying their tools. Children play nearby, laughing softly as they chase one another through narrow alleys. Women finish evening tasks outside their homes. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Inside the house, the mother prepares the evening meal. Bread is set out again, along with vegetables and a small amount of fish caught from the Nile. The family sits together on the floor to eat. Meals are modest, but they are shared with gratitude. Conversation is gentle and unhurried. The father speaks about the condition of the crops. The mother mentions a neighbor who is ill. The children listen while eating. Illness is a constant part of life in ancient Egypt. The hot climate, hard labor, poor sanitation, and limited medical knowledge mean that many people suffer from disease and injury. Doctors exist, and some treatments are surprisingly advanced for the time, but many conditions remain dangerous. A simple infection can become serious. A broken bone may heal poorly. Years of grinding grain can damage teeth and joints. Life expectancy is shorter than in the modern world, especially for those doing heavy labor. Still, people find moments of comfort and joy within their routines. Music is played at celebrations. Families gather for festivals. Children laugh. Neighbors help one another during difficult times. Human life continues with quiet resilience. After the meal, the family spends some time outside. The evening air is cooler now. Stars begin appearing above the village. The Nile reflects the darkening sky. A musician nearby plucks a simple instrument while others sing softly. The sound drifts through the warm night air. For a little while, the burdens of the day feel lighter. But tomorrow's work is already waiting. Before long, the family prepares for sleep. Lamps are dimmed. The house grows quiet. The children settle onto mats, and the adults lie down beside them. Outside, the village slowly falls silent. Only a few distant sounds remain, the murmur of the river, the rustle of reeds, the occasional bark of a dog. The stars shine brightly over Egypt. Another day has passed, much like countless days before it. Simple lives. Hard work. Steady routines. A world shaped by the Nile and guided by order. And as sleep gently settles over the mud-brick homes beside the river, ancient Egypt rests once more beneath the quiet desert sky. The darkness remains for a little while longer. The Nile glides through the night as it always has. Its waters move quietly between fields and villages, carrying reflections of countless stars. The desert beyond the fertile banks lies still and silent. No voices rise from its empty distances. No lamps shine there. Along the river, however, life waits beneath sleeping roofs. The village seems peaceful now. A cool breeze passes through narrow lanes between mud-brick homes. It slips across flat rooftops where some families have chosen to sleep beneath the open sky. During the hottest seasons, the night air can feel more comfortable than the warmth trapped inside crowded rooms. A grandfather lies awake for a moment. Age has made sleep lighter than it once was. He listens to the sounds of the night. A distant splash from the river. The rustling of reeds. The soft breathing of family members nearby. Then his eyes close once more. The hours pass gently. Eventually, the eastern horizon begins to brighten. Another day approaches. Another day very much like the one before. And for most Egyptians, that predictability is simply part of existence. Many people spend their entire lives within a few miles of where they were born. The village where they take their first steps may also become the place where they marry, raise children, grow old, and eventually die. Travel happens. Merchants travel. Officials travel. Boat crews travel. Soldiers travel. But ordinary farmers often remain close to home. Their world is centered on familiar roads, familiar fields, and familiar faces. As dawn spreads across the Nile Valley, the village slowly awakens. Smoke begins rising from cooking fires. Doors creak open. The smell of fresh bread appears once again. The cycle continues. A young woman kneels beside a grinding stone. Before breakfast can be prepared, grain must become flour. The heavy upper stone moves back and forth across the grain beneath it. Again. And again. And again. The movement seems simple. Yet it demands strength and endurance. Many women spend years performing this task. The work shapes muscles. It strains joints. It wears down the body little by little. Ancient life often involves labor that modern people would consider exhausting. Yet because everyone around them works in similar ways, the effort feels normal. Expected. Necessary. The woman wipes sweat from her forehead. The sun has barely risen, yet the day is already growing warm. Nearby, children help with smaller tasks. One gathers kindling. Another carries water. Another feeds animals. Responsibility arrives early in Egypt. Children learn by watching adults. They imitate movements. They memorize routines. They slowly absorb the knowledge needed for survival. There are few written instructions for ordinary life. Most lessons pass from one generation to the next. A father teaches his son how to work the soil. A mother teaches her daughter how to prepare food. An older fisherman teaches a younger fisherman how to read the river. Knowledge flows through families like the Nile flows through the land. Steady, reliable, enduring. As morning advances, activity increases across the countryside. Boats begin appearing on the water. Many are small. Some carry fishermen. Others carry merchants transporting goods between settlements. The Nile serves as Egypt's great road. Travel by water is often easier than travel across land. The river connects distant communities. It links villages to towns and towns to cities. Its waters carry food, building materials, messages, and people. A merchant stands aboard a narrow boat loaded with baskets. The journey ahead may take several days. He checks ropes and supplies before departure. The work of a merchant can be tiring in its own way. Travel brings opportunity, but it also brings uncertainty. Weather changes. Cargo can be damaged. Markets can disappoint. Still, trade remains important. Without it, communities would become isolated. As the boat pushes away from shore, gentle ripples spread across the water. The merchant watches the village slowly recede behind him. Palm trees shrink into the distance. Mudbrick homes become small shapes along the riverbank. Soon another settlement will appear ahead. And then another. And another. The Nile ties them all together. Back in the fields, farmers continue their work. The sun climbs steadily higher. The coolness of dawn fades. Heat begins settling over everything. A farmer pauses to examine young crops. His eyes scan rows of grain carefully. Every plant matters. Every harvest matters. The margin between comfort and hardship can be very small. A poor harvest affects entire families. Food supplies shrink. Taxes become harder to pay. Anxiety grows. Most Egyptians understand how fragile security can be. Even in good years, life requires constant effort. There is little room for laziness. A farmer who neglects his field risks losing much more than a season's work. He risks the well-being of everyone who depends on him. The pressure is quiet but constant. Responsibility follows him everywhere. As the morning continues, the village blacksmith begins his work. His workshop grows hot quickly. Metal tools require repair. Blades need sharpening. Equipment wears out under constant use. The blacksmith's hammer rises and falls in a steady rhythm. Clang. 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 The sound echoes through nearby streets. Children recognize it immediately. So do farmers. So do craftsmen. The workshop forms an important part of village life. Without tools, labor becomes even harder. The blacksmith understands this. His hands bear scars from years of work. His face shines with sweat. Yet his skill earns respect. Many occupations in Egypt depend upon specialized knowledge. Potters, carpenters, stone workers, weavers, metal workers. Each contributes something valuable. Each occupies a recognized place within society. The Egyptian world values order. And order depends upon people fulfilling expected roles. Even religion reflects this preference for stability. Throughout Egypt, temples stand as symbols of permanence. Their walls rise above towns and villages. Their courtyards welcome priests and visitors. Their ceremonies follow ancient patterns repeated year after year. To ordinary people, temples are not simply religious places. They are also centers of administration, employment, and local influence. Large temples own land. They manage resources. They employ workers. They store grain. They shape community life in many ways. A priest walks through a temple courtyard. The morning sun illuminates carved stone walls around him. Incense drifts gently through the air. The scent mixes with warm stone and desert dust. His duties follow a precise schedule. Rituals must be performed correctly. Offerings must be prepared. Sacred spaces must be maintained. Like farmers and craftsmen, priests operate within structured routines. Ancient Egyptian life often feels carefully organized. There is comfort in this organization. But there is also limitation. People rarely choose entirely new paths. Tradition guides behavior. Authority reinforces expectations. Change arrives slowly. Very slowly. Generations may pass with surprisingly little alteration to daily life. A grandfather can describe routines that his grandson will one day follow. The landscape remains familiar. The fields remain familiar. The obligations remain familiar. As midday approaches, heat spreads across every corner of the valley. The sunlight becomes almost white. Shadows shrink beneath people and buildings. Dust hangs in the air. Workers slow their movements slightly. Not because work is finished. Because conserving energy becomes necessary. A group of laborers rests beside a storage building. Their clothing is damp with sweat. Their faces show exhaustion. One man massages a sore shoulder. Another drinks water slowly. A third simply closes his eyes for a moment. Physical fatigue is one of the great realities of ancient life. Many workers wake tired. Labor all day. Then sleep only to begin again. The body becomes accustomed to effort. Yet exhaustion never completely disappears. It remains a familiar companion. Present but accepted. The laborers soon rise and return to work. The sun has not yet begun its descent. Hours remain. Nearby, a government official arrives to inspect supplies. His appearance changes the atmosphere slightly. People straighten their posture. Conversations become more formal. Records are reviewed. Measurements are checked. Ancient Egypt relies heavily on administration. Officials represent authority. Their presence reminds people that individual lives exist within a larger structure. Most interactions remain routine. Yet the message is clear. Work is being observed. Responsibilities matter. Expectations must be met. Control does not always require force. Often it operates through organization. Documentation. Observation. Routine. A farmer may spend his entire life under systems established long before he was born. He may rarely question them. They simply feel like part of the natural order of things. Just as the river floods. Just as crops grow. Just as the sun rises each morning. By late afternoon, the worst heat finally begins to fade. The sky softens slightly. A gentle breeze returns. Workers notice the change immediately. The end of the workday slowly approaches. A fisherman pulls his boat toward shore. His catch today is modest but sufficient. Several silver fish lie inside woven baskets. The river glows golden around him. Sunlight dances across the surface. For a moment, everything feels peaceful. The fisherman breathes deeply. The day's labor is nearly over. Soon he will return home. Soon he will eat. Soon he will rest. Simple pleasures carry great value in a life filled with work. Cool water. Shade. Food. Family. Sleep. These things matter deeply. As evening arrives, villagers begin gathering once more. Children return from errands. Animals are secured for the night. Cooking fires burn brightly. The smell of bread fills the air again. The scent drifts through narrow streets and across open courtyards. Inside homes, meals are prepared with careful attention. Food cannot be wasted. Resources must last. Families understand this instinctively. Many have experienced difficult seasons before. A good year brings relief. A difficult year leaves lasting memories. The uncertainty of harvests teaches caution. As darkness slowly returns, people gather together. Stories are shared. Neighbors talk. Children listen. The sky fills with stars. One by one, the sounds of labor disappear. The hammer falls silent. The boats stop moving. The workshops close. The roads empty. Only the river continues its endless journey. The Nile never truly rests. Day and night, season after season, century after century, it flows onward. For Egyptians, it is more than water. It is life itself. Their food depends upon it. Their travel depends upon it. Their economy depends upon it. Their routines revolve around it. And so, beneath the vast night sky, thousands of ordinary people settle into sleep beside its banks. Farmers, fishermen, builders, servants, merchants, scribes, each carrying the fatigue of another long day, each preparing for another dawn. The stars watch silently overhead. The desert waits beyond the fields. And the gentle waters of the Nile continue moving through the darkness, carrying ancient Egypt softly into another quiet night. The Nile moves through the darkness without hurry. Moonlight stretches across the water in long silver bands. The reeds along the riverbank sway softly in the night breeze. Somewhere among them, insects hum their endless songs. The sounds are small and gentle, blending into the quiet rhythm of the sleeping land. Most villages have gone completely dark. The cooking fires have burned down to glowing embers. Doors are closed. Animals rest in their shelters. Families sleep behind thick mud-brick walls that hold the warmth of the day. Yet even now, Egypt is not entirely asleep. A fisherman sits awake beside the river. His boat is tied nearby. The water laps softly against its wooden side. He enjoys these peaceful moments before dawn. There is a calmness here that exists nowhere else. The day's labor has ended. Tomorrow's work has not yet begun. Only the river remains. Steady. Patient. Eternal. He watches the stars reflected in the water. The same stars watched his father. And his grandfather before him. Many things change slowly in Egypt. Some hardly change at all. The villages remain where they have always been. The fields continue producing grain. Families continue teaching children the same skills. The seasons continue following the familiar pattern shaped by the Nile. This continuity creates a feeling of stability. People know what tomorrow will bring. They know what next month will bring. Often they know what next year will bring. Life follows established paths. For many Egyptians, this predictability feels natural. The first signs of dawn appear. A pale band of light touches the eastern horizon. Birds begin calling from the reeds. The fisherman stands and stretches. Soon the village will awaken. Soon thousands of daily routines will begin once more. The cool air feels pleasant against his skin. He knows it will not last. By midday the heat will return. It always does. As sunlight spreads across the Nile Valley, life slowly emerges from sleep. A young girl wakes beside her family. She sits quietly for a moment, blinking in the early light. The room around her is simple. The floor is packed earth. The walls are rough but sturdy. Clay jars stand against one wall. A woven basket rests nearby. Everything inside the home serves a practical purpose. There is little room for decoration. Luxury belongs mostly to the wealthy. Ordinary families focus on necessities. Food, water, shelter, tools. Life leaves little energy for anything else. The girl helps her mother prepare for the day. Together they sweep dust from the floor. They organize cooking supplies. They carry water. These tasks seem small. Yet they fill many hours over the course of a lifetime. Ancient life often consists of countless necessary chores. Work appears everywhere. A task completed today usually returns tomorrow. A jar emptied today must be filled again tomorrow. Bread eaten today must be baked again tomorrow. Clothing repaired today may need repair again next season. The cycle never fully ends. As the village becomes active, the streets fill with familiar movement. Men walk toward fields carrying tools. Women prepare food. Children assist where they can. Animals wander through narrow pathways. The sounds of daily life gradually replace the silence of night. Voices. Footsteps. Bird calls. The creaking of wooden carts. The distant splash of water. Together they create the gentle soundtrack of the Egyptian morning. Near the edge of the village, an elderly farmer begins his walk toward the fields. His pace is slower than it once was. Years of labor have left their mark. His back bends slightly. His knees ache. His hands show the wear of decades spent working soil. Yet he continues. There is little choice. Retirement, as many people understand it, does not exist here. Most Egyptians work as long as their bodies allow. Families often depend on every member contributing something. The elderly may perform lighter tasks. They may care for children. They may share knowledge. But complete rest remains uncommon. The old farmer reaches the fields and pauses. Morning sunlight glows across rows of crops. The sight comforts him. He has spent most of his life here. These fields have fed his family. They have provided taxes for officials. They have determined whether years felt prosperous or difficult. A farmer's fortunes rise and fall with the harvest. The soil beneath his feet matters more than distant politics. More than distant ceremonies. More than distant royal announcements. For ordinary people, local concerns often feel most important. The weather. The river. The crops. The health of family members. These things shape daily reality. Far away, in a larger town, a group of young scribes gathers for lessons. They sit cross-legged with writing materials before them. Their teacher watches carefully. Becoming a scribe requires discipline. Students memorize signs. They practice handwriting. They learn mathematics. They study records. The work demands patience. Mistakes must be corrected. Lessons must be repeated. Some students grow frustrated. Others remain determined. Education opens doors that remain closed to most people. A successful scribe may avoid years of heavy physical labor. His future can be more comfortable than that of many farmers. Yet even this path remains highly structured. Scribes serve the system. They support administration. They preserve records. Their knowledge gives them status, but also responsibility. The teacher walks between students. Reed brushes scratch softly across papyrus. The room remains quiet except for occasional instructions. Outside, sunlight grows brighter. Heat begins building once again. Across Egypt, workers settle into another demanding day. A potter shapes clay beside a spinning wheel. His hands move smoothly. Years of practice guide every motion. A lump of wet clay slowly transforms into a storage jar. The process appears simple. In reality, it requires considerable skill. The walls must be even. The shape must be balanced. The finished vessel must survive firing without cracking. The potter concentrates carefully. His livelihood depends upon craftsmanship. Many Egyptians rely on handmade objects every day. Clay jars store water. Clay bowls hold food. Clay containers preserve grain. Without potters, daily life becomes much more difficult. The same is true for many other craftsmen. Carpenters build furniture. Stoneworkers create tools. Weavers produce cloth. Every occupation supports the larger community. The system functions because countless people perform specialized tasks. Most remain anonymous. Their names rarely appear in monuments. Their achievements rarely receive celebration. Yet their labor sustains the kingdom. By late morning, the heat has become intense. Workers wipe sweat from their faces. The air feels heavier. The sunlight seems to press down from above. In the fields, irrigation channels carry water between crops. Several farmers work together to maintain them. Mud must be cleared. Water flow must be managed. Neglect can damage entire harvests. The Nile provides life, but human effort remains necessary. Nothing happens automatically. The relationship between people and the river requires constant attention. Many hours of labor disappear into tasks that leave little visible trace. Cleaning channels. Repairing tools. Maintaining walls. Carrying supplies. These jobs rarely attract attention. Yet they are essential. Ancient Egypt depends upon countless invisible efforts. As midday arrives, workers seek shade whenever possible. A group of laborers gathers beneath a large tree. The shadow offers temporary relief. They eat simple meals. Bread. Onions. Perhaps dried fish. Perhaps dates. The food is modest but filling. Conversation remains quiet. The heat drains energy. Many simply rest. One man closes his eyes for a few moments. Another stares toward the distant river. The stillness feels comforting. For a brief time, nobody needs to lift, carry, push, or pull. The body can simply exist. These small pauses matter. Physical labor dominates much of life. Moments of rest become precious. Nearby, a traveling merchant arrives at the village. His donkey carries baskets filled with goods. Children notice him first. Soon adults gather as well. Traveling merchants bring news from other places. They carry stories along with products. A village that feels isolated suddenly gains a connection to the wider world. The merchant speaks of towns farther north. Of markets beside larger cities. Of boats crowded with cargo. Of temples receiving new decorations. The listeners are interested. Yet many know they may never see those places themselves. Travel requires resources. Time. Opportunity. For most people, daily obligations make long journeys difficult. The wider world exists largely through stories. As afternoon stretches onward, the merchant continues his journey. The village gradually returns to its normal rhythm. Work resumes. Tools move. Animals graze. Water flows through irrigation channels. Life continues. The hours pass slowly beneath the bright Egyptian sun. Toward evening, the atmosphere begins changing once more. Shadows lengthen. The sky softens. A gentle breeze returns from the river. Workers feel relief spreading through tired muscles. The hardest part of the day is ending. A builder sets down his tools. His arms ache. Dust covers his skin. Small cuts mark his hands. Yet there is satisfaction in seeing the day's progress. Even difficult labor can carry a sense of purpose. A wall stands higher. A structure grows stronger. Visible results provide encouragement. Nearby, farmers begin walking home. Their pace is slow but steady. The road fills with familiar faces. Everyone appears tired. Everyone appears ready for rest. The village welcomes them back. Cooking fires burn once again. The smell of baking bread drifts through the evening air. Children run through narrow lanes. Dogs wander between houses. Neighbors exchange greetings. The atmosphere feels warmer now. More relaxed. The demands of the day are nearly finished. Families gather together for the evening meal. Inside one home, an elderly woman tells stories while children listen. Her voice is calm and steady. She speaks of years long past. of floods that rose high, of harvests that were especially good, of relatives no longer living. The children listen closely. Stories help preserve memory. They connect generations. In a world where many people cannot read, spoken words carry great importance. Knowledge survives through conversation. Experience survives through storytelling. Outside, darkness settles gradually across the landscape. The first stars appear. Then more. Then hundreds. The sky becomes a vast canopy of light. Without modern lamps, the stars seem extraordinarily bright. They fill the heavens from horizon to horizon. Many Egyptians look upward and see not empty space, but a living cosmos connected to their beliefs and traditions. The stars feel close. Familiar. Part of everyday existence. The village grows quieter. Children become sleepy. Conversations soften. Lamps flicker gently inside homes. One by one, families prepare for rest. The day's work is finally complete. For now. Tomorrow waits beyond the darkness. Another sunrise. Another round of responsibilities. Another cycle of labor beside the Nile. And so, beneath the endless stars of ancient Egypt, ordinary people settle once more into sleep, while the river continues its slow journey through the night, carrying the calm rhythm of their lives onward through time. The Nile continues its quiet journey beneath the stars. Its dark waters slide past sleeping villages and silent fields. Moonlight glimmers on the surface, breaking into thousands of tiny reflections whenever a fish disturbs the water. Along the riverbanks, tall reeds whisper softly in the night breeze. Egypt rests. For a few precious hours, the endless work pauses. The farmers sleep. The fishermen sleep. The potters and weavers sleep. The scribes rest their hands. Even the donkeys and oxen stand quietly in the darkness. Only the river keeps moving. It never stops. Generation after generation, it flows northward through the valley, shaping every life it touches. Inside a modest mud-brick home, a young mother wakes briefly. The room is dark except for a faint glow from dying embers. Beside her, her children sleep peacefully on woven mats. She listens for a moment. The familiar sounds reassure her. The distant river. The soft breathing of family. The occasional rustle of wind against the roof. Everything feels safe. Soon her eyes grow heavy again. Sleep returns. Night continues. Far above, the stars drift slowly across the heavens. Ancient Egyptians often paid close attention to the sky. The movement of stars helped mark seasons and measure time. Certain stars appeared before sunrise at important moments of the year. Priests observed these patterns carefully. For ordinary villagers, however, the stars often meant something simpler. They were companions during long nights. Guides for travelers. Silent lights above a world filled with work. As the final hours of darkness pass, the eastern horizon begins to brighten once again. The first birds awaken. A cool breeze moves across the fields. Another day approaches. The village slowly comes to life. Doors open. Voices appear. Cooking fires are lit. The scent of smoke drifts through narrow streets. A baker begins preparing dough before sunrise. Her hands move with practiced ease. She has performed these same motions thousands of times. Mixing. Kneading. Shaping. Waiting. The work requires patience. There are no shortcuts. Bread arrives only through effort. As the dough rises, she adds fuel to the oven. Soon warmth spreads through the room. Outside, villagers begin their morning journeys. The roads fill with familiar figures carrying tools, baskets, and jars. A farmer walks toward the fields. A fisherman heads toward the river. A servant leaves for the household where she works. Everyone has somewhere to be. Everyone has responsibilities waiting. The structure of Egyptian life reaches into nearly every hour of the day. People understand what is expected of them. Children learn these expectations early. A young boy follows his father through the village. He carries a small bundle of tools almost as large as his arm. His steps are eager. He wants to prove he can help. His father smiles quietly but says little. Many lessons in Egypt are taught through observation. The boy watches how his father works. How he speaks to neighbors. How he handles tools. How he responds to authority. Day after day, these examples shape the child's understanding of the world. Eventually, those habits become his own. The cycle continues. Across the Nile Valley, countless children are learning the same way. Not through formal instruction. Not through books. But through repetition. Through example. Through daily life. The sun rises higher. Golden light spreads across fields of grain. The crops sway gently in the morning breeze. For a short time, the temperature remains comfortable. Workers appreciate these early hours. They know the heat will soon arrive. In one field, a group of farmers repairs an irrigation channel damaged during the previous season. The work is muddy and tiring. They dig carefully. Water must flow correctly. Too much water can destroy crops. Too little can leave them struggling to survive. Every detail matters. The Nile provides opportunity, but success still depends upon human effort. This balance shapes much of Egyptian existence. People rely upon nature. Yet they must constantly work with it. The river floods. Farmers respond. The seasons change. Workers adapt. The relationship is continuous. A conversation between people and the land. As the morning advances, a government official arrives to inspect local records. His clothing is cleaner than that of the farmers. His hands show fewer signs of manual labor. Yet his presence carries authority. Villagers greet him respectfully. The official reviews grain reports prepared by local scribes. He examines measurements. He checks inventories. He asks questions. Everything must be documented. The Egyptian state depends heavily upon information. Officials want to know how much grain exists. How many workers are available? What resources can be collected? Records help maintain control across a kingdom stretching hundreds of miles along the Nile. Most ordinary people never travel far beyond their local communities. Yet decisions made elsewhere still affect them. Taxes. Labor obligations. Construction projects. Agricultural requirements. The influence of distant administrators reaches into village life even when the administrators themselves remain unseen. A farmer may spend his entire life near the same fields. Still, he lives within a system much larger than himself. That system feels permanent. As permanent as the river. As permanent as the desert. As permanent as the stars. Near midday, activity increases in a crowded workshop. Several weavers sit before large looms. Their hands move steadily. Thread passes through thread. Patterns emerge slowly. The work demands concentration. Mistakes require correction. Hours pass with little change in posture. The repetitive movements strain backs and shoulders. Yet beautiful linen cloth gradually appears. Egyptian linen is valued throughout the region. Its light texture suits the warm climate. Many workers spend entire careers producing it. A young apprentice watches carefully. She studies every movement. Every technique. One day she will perform these tasks herself. For now, she learns. The workshop feels warm and crowded. Dust hangs in the air. The constant sound of weaving creates a gentle rhythm. Tap. Pull. Adjust. Repeat. The rhythm becomes almost hypnotic. Outside, the afternoon heat settles over the town. Streets grow quieter. People move more slowly. Animals seek shade. Even birds become less active. The sun dominates everything. Its presence shapes schedules throughout Egypt. Workers rise early because cooler hours are valuable. Midday often brings exhaustion. By late afternoon, energy begins returning. Life follows the rhythm of temperature as much as the rhythm of the clock. A fisherman guides his boat through calm water. The river reflects the bright sky above. He checks his nets carefully. Fishing requires patience. Some days bring success. Others bring disappointment. Nature cannot be fully controlled. The fisherman understands this. He works hard. He uses experience and skill. Yet uncertainty remains. That uncertainty exists throughout ancient life. A crop may fail. A storm may damage property. An illness may appear unexpectedly. People learn to live alongside uncertainty. To accept it. To continue working despite it. Farther north, a group of stone workers shapes blocks for a building project. The sound of tools striking stone echoes through the air. Dust covers their clothing. Tiny fragments scatter across the ground. The work is demanding. Precision matters. Mistakes waste valuable materials. One worker pauses to stretch his aching back. Another wipes sweat from his eyes. Their bodies bear the cost of construction. Many ancient structures survive for thousands of years. The workers themselves do not. Their names often disappear from history. Yet their labor remains visible long after they are gone. As afternoon slowly turns toward evening, shadows lengthen across the land. The air becomes gentler. A sense of relief spreads through villages and towns. The hardest hours have passed. People begin thinking about home. About food. About rest. A mother returns from the river carrying water. The jar feels heavy. Her shoulders ache. Still, she walks steadily. This task has become part of her life. One among many. Small responsibilities repeated over years create the foundation of daily existence. At home, she begins preparing the evening meal. Grain is ground. Vegetables are cleaned. Bread is arranged. Simple food fills simple bowls. The meal may not be elaborate. Yet it provides comfort. Families gather together. The day slows. Children share stories about what they saw. Adults discuss work completed and work still waiting. Laughter appears occasionally. So do worries. Life contains both. As darkness approaches, the village transforms. The intense brightness of day fades away. The sky turns orange. Then purple. Then deep blue. Birds return to their nests. Boats return to shore. Workers return home. The smell of evening fires drifts through the cooling air. For many Egyptians, this is the most pleasant part of the day. The heat weakens. The pressure of labor eases. People can finally relax. An elderly man sits outside his home watching the sunset. He has witnessed thousands of evenings beside the Nile. Yet he never grows tired of the sight. The river glows beneath the fading light. Palm trees become dark silhouettes. The horizon softens. Everything feels calm. For a little while, there is no urgency. No deadlines. No instructions. No commands. Only the quiet beauty of evening. Soon stars begin appearing overhead. Families finish their meals. Children become sleepy. Conversations grow softer. Lamps flicker behind small windows. One by one, homes settle into silence. The village prepares for another night. Another pause between days of labor. Another brief rest before dawn returns. And as the Nile continues flowing beneath the ancient stars, carrying reflections of moonlight across its surface, the ordinary people of Egypt drift toward sleep once more. Farmers. Builders. Merchants. Fishermen. Servants. Scribes. Lives shaped by routine. Lives guided by duty. Lives both simple and carefully controlled. While the river moves onward through the darkness, they rest beside its banks, waiting for the next sunrise to begin the familiar rhythm all over again. The night deepens again over the Nile Valley. A soft darkness settles across the land, not heavy, but gentle, like a blanket laid over sleeping earth. The wind moves slowly through the palm trees. It brushes across rooftops where families rest in quiet rooms made of mud and straw and sun-baked brick. Inside those homes, sleep is steady. Breathing is slow. The day is gone, and nothing is asked of anyone for a few hours more. Outside, the river continues its endless path. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It has seen every kind of day that Egypt can offer, and still it flows with the same quiet certainty. A small fishing boat drifts near the shore, tied loosely to a wooden post. The fisherman who owns it sleeps nearby. His net is folded beside him. His hands still carry the memory of water and rope and movement. Tomorrow, he will return to the river again. As he always does. As he has always done. In another part of the village, a scribe sits alone for a moment longer than others. His home is dim. A small oil lamp flickers beside him, casting soft light over papyrus sheets. He finishes a final line of writing before sleep. Records of grain. Names of workers. Notes from the day. His work is quiet, but it shapes the structure of life around him. When he finally sets down his brush, there is a sense of order in the room. Everything has been written. Everything has been accounted for. Now even he can rest. And so he lies down, letting sleep take him like everyone else. The village becomes still again. Only the night remains. Only the soft movement of air through reeds. Only the distant presence of water along the river's edge. Time passes slowly here. Not measured by clocks or urgency, but by light and heat and rest. And soon, the edge of night begins to change once more. A faint glow appears in the east. It is barely noticeable at first. Just a thin suggestion of light behind the horizon. But it grows slowly. Patiently. Like everything in this land. A rooster calls from somewhere deep in the village. Then another answers. The sound spreads gently through the quiet streets. Not loud. Not urgent. Just enough to remind the sleeping world that morning is approaching again. Inside homes, people begin to stir. A hand shifts under a woven blanket. A child turns over on a mat. A mother opens her eyes before she fully awakens. There is no surprise in this moment. Only recognition. The rhythm is known. The day will begin again. As it always does. Before sunrise, the first tasks are already waiting. Water must be collected. Fires must be started. Bread must be prepared. Animals must be checked. The structure of life does not wait for comfort. It simply continues. A young farmer steps outside his home and pauses for a moment in the cool air. The village is still half asleep. Shadows remain long and soft. The sky is pale but not yet bright. He breathes in slowly. The air carries the scent of earth and river. He listens. The Nile is nearby. Always nearby. Its presence is constant, even when unseen. He begins walking toward the fields. Each step is familiar. The path has been walked many times before. It will be walked many times again. In the fields, the crops are quiet under the early light. Nothing moves except the wind. But soon, many hands will arrive. Hands that know the soil deeply. Hands that have worked it for years. Hands that will continue working it for years to come. A system of life built on repetition. On trust in the river. On patience with the seasons. On acceptance of labor as a natural part of living. Farther away, a group of laborers gathers near a construction site. They arrive before the sun becomes strong. They know the heat will come later. It always does. Tools are lifted from storage. Ropes are checked. Stone is prepared. There is little conversation at first. Only quiet readiness. Work does not begin loudly in Egypt. It begins as something ordinary. Something expected. Something inevitable. Nearby, a woman kneels beside a grinding stone again. The same motion. The same rhythm. The same weight pressing through her arms and shoulders. Flour gathers in a small pile beside her. Her children move around the room, helping where they can. One carries water. Another gathers fuel for the fire. Another watches carefully, learning without being told. The home fills with early morning activity. Soft. Familiar. Unchanging. Outside, light begins to spread across the Nile Valley. The sky brightens slowly, turning from gray to pale gold. Birds return to the air. The village becomes fully awake once more. And the cycle resumes. Not with excitement. Not with surprise. But with quiet certainty. A certainty that defines life here more than anything else. The farmer returns to his fields. The fisherman returns to his river. The scribe returns to his records. The builder returns to his stone. The merchant returns to his root. Each person steps back into a role that feels both personal and shared. Individual lives, yet shaped by the same patterns. As the sun rises higher, the warmth begins to grow again. Shadows shorten. Work intensifies. The world shifts from stillness into motion. And yet, beneath all of it, there is continuity. The same river. The same fields. The same routines. The same expectations carried quietly through generations. In a small village courtyard, an elderly woman sits for a moment before beginning her tasks. She watches the younger people move around her. She has seen many seasons come and go. Many floods. Many harvests. Many changes that felt large at the time but now feel distant. To her, life has always followed this same rhythm. Work. Rest. Work again. She adjusts her shawl and rises slowly. There are still things to do. There always are. And so the day continues its gentle unfolding across the land. Not rushing. Not pausing. Just moving forward in its steady, familiar way. The Nile glows softly under the morning sun. And along its banks, Egypt once again settles into the quiet structure of its everyday life. The sun climbs higher again over the Nile Valley. Its light spreads slowly across fields, rooftops, and narrow village paths. The warmth builds gently at first, then steadily, as if the land is being reminded once more that it is alive and awake. The morning is already well underway. People have returned to their work. The river continues its steady movement beside them. In the fields, farmers bend over crops with practiced patience. Their movements are unhurried but constant. Hands reach into soil. Tools press into earth. Water is guided through channels carved by generations before them. Everything is familiar. Everything is repeated. There is comfort in that repetition, even when the labor is heavy. A farmer pauses for a moment and wipes his brow. The heat is beginning to rise. Not yet overwhelming, but noticeable enough to change the rhythm of effort. He looks across the field. Rows of grain stretch outward in quiet order. Some plants are strong and green. Others are still young, fragile, dependent on careful attention. He knows these differences matter. A single neglected patch can affect the harvest later. So he continues. Step by step. Task by task. Nearby, a group of workers adjusts an irrigation channel. Water moves slowly through the narrow path they have shaped. It glints in the sunlight before disappearing between rows of soil. The sound is soft. Almost soothing. A reminder that even in labor, there is movement and flow. Not everything in this life is stillness. Not everything is hardship. there are moments when work and nature align quietly. In a nearby village, a small workshop hums with activity. A potter shapes wet clay on a wheel that turns with steady rhythm. His hands are coated in earth. His focus is calm and steady. Each vessel takes shape slowly. Nothing is rushed. If the clay is pressed too hard, it collapses. If it is shaped too quickly, it loses balance. So he works gently, patiently, as he has learned over many years. Shelves beside him hold finished pots drying in the heat. They will later be fired in ovens that glow with controlled fire. Then they will be used for water, grain, cooking, storage. Every household depends on such objects. Simple things, made through skilled repetition. Outside the workshop, the village is slowly becoming warmer. Shadows shorten. The air grows heavier. Movement slows slightly as people conserve energy for the hours ahead. A group of children walks along a dusty path carrying small bundles. They are sent on errands. Water jars. Food deliveries. Messages between neighbors. Even in childhood, responsibility is part of daily life. They do not question it. It is simply what is done. They walk barefoot or in simple sandals, stepping carefully over uneven ground. Dust rises softly around their feet and settles again moments later. One child glances toward the river in the distance. It shines brightly under the sun. Wide. Constant. Unchanging. A presence that feels older than anything else around them. By midday, the heat becomes stronger. The sun sits high and heavy above the land. Its brightness fills everything. Fields shimmer faintly. Roofs glow with stored warmth. The air feels still, as if the world itself is resting while still awake. Work continues, but more slowly. Movements become deliberate. Rest breaks appear more often. Under a large tree near the fields, several farmers gather in the shade. They sit close to the ground. Their bodies are tired. Their clothes are damp with sweat. Water is shared from a clay jar passed carefully from hand to hand. No one speaks much at first. The silence feels natural, even restful. One man leans back against the trunk of the tree and closes his eyes for a moment. Not sleeping fully. Just resting. Just pausing. Moments like this are small, but they matter deeply in a life filled with physical effort. The body needs them. The mind needs them. And so they are taken whenever possible. Across the valley, scribes continue their quiet work inside shaded rooms. Ink flows across papyrus in careful lines. Records grow longer. Numbers accumulate. The system of administration continues its steady expansion across the kingdom. Grain is counted. Labor is assigned. Taxes are recorded. Everything becomes written. Everything becomes part of a larger structure that extends far beyond any single village. A scribe pauses and adjusts his reed brush. His movements are precise. He has learned that accuracy matters more than speed. Mistakes can cause confusion later. Confusion leads to correction. Correction takes time. So he works carefully from the beginning. Outside his window, the brightness of the day feels almost distant. Inside, the room remains relatively cool. A small comfort within a hot world. In another part of Egypt, construction workers continue shaping stone for a large structure. Their bodies move in coordinated effort. Ropes tighten. Wooden sleds slide across ground. Stone shifts slowly into place. The sound of labor fills the air. Not chaotic. Not loud in a harsh way. But steady. Like a pulse. The structure they build will last far beyond their lifetimes. This thought does not always enter their minds. Most focus only on the next task. Lift. Pull. Position. Repeat. A foreman walks among them, giving simple instructions. His voice is calm but firm. The work must continue at a steady pace. There is no need for urgency beyond what is required. In Egypt, endurance matters more than speed. As afternoon begins to approach, the heat remains strong. But something subtle begins to shift in the atmosphere. A faint breeze moves through the valley. Not yet cool, but noticeable. It brushes across skin and clothing. It moves through reeds along the river. It suggests that the day is slowly reaching its later hours. Farmers notice this without needing to speak about it. It is felt rather than discussed. The day is slowly turning. In the fields, harvesting begins in a small section where grain is ready. Sickles move through stalks in steady motion. Cut. Gather. Bundle. Carry. The work is repetitive but important. Harvest season carries a different feeling from planting or maintenance. There is visible reward. Something tangible. Bundles of grain stacked in neat rows. A sign that effort has turned into food. A sign that the land has given back what it was asked to provide. Even so, there is no celebration yet. There is still work to complete. Storage must be prepared. Transport must be arranged. Nothing is finished until everything is safely secured. As the afternoon continues, fatigue deepens in many bodies. Shoulders ache. Hands stiffen. Feet grow heavy. Yet people continue. This is the rhythm of the day. Work until the sun begins to soften. Rest when it allows. Then return home when light finally fades. By late afternoon, the village begins to shift again. A subtle change appears in movement and sound. More people begin to leave their work. Paths become busier. Dust rises from returning footsteps. The smell of cooking fires begins to appear again, faint at first, then stronger. The idea of evening slowly enters everyone's thoughts. Not spoken. Just understood. Home. Rest. Food. Stillness. The farmer gathers his tools. He looks once more across the field before leaving. Everything appears as it should. For now. The river glows in the distance under slanting light. The journey home begins. Slow. Familiar. Comforting in its predictability. And as the sun begins its long descent toward the horizon, ancient Egypt prepares once again for the soft return of night. The sun lowers slowly toward the edge of the desert. Its light stretches long across the Nile Valley, turning fields into soft gold and mud-brick homes into warm silhouettes. The air begins to change in a way that everyone recognizes without needing to speak about it. The hardest part of the day is ending. Not all at once. Not suddenly. But gently, as if the world itself is exhaling after holding its breath for many hours. Farmers walk along familiar paths back toward their villages. Their tools rest across their shoulders or hang from their hands. Their bodies feel heavier now, not from the heat alone, but from the full weight of the day's effort. Yet there is a quiet ease in this moment. Work is done. For now. Along the river, fishermen pull in their nets for the last time. Water drips back into the Nile in thin lines of silver. Fish caught during the day are placed carefully into baskets. Some catches are small. Some days are better than others. No one expects certainty from the river. Only effort. Only patience. Only return. A fisherman pauses for a moment and looks out across the water. The surface reflects the soft colors of evening. He has known this river his entire life. It has fed him. It has challenged him. It has taken days of success and days of nothing at all. Still, he returns. Always returns. Because this is the rhythm of his life. Back in the village, the streets slowly fill again. People return from fields, workshops, and administrative buildings. Voices grow more frequent. Footsteps become more numerous. The village begins to breathe in a different way. Not the quiet focus of morning work. Not the heavy silence of midday heat. but the gentle movement of return. Inside homes, the first signs of evening preparation begin. Water is poured into clay pots. Grain is ground once more. Bread is shaped for baking. Cooking fires are lit carefully so they will not burn too quickly. The smell of smoke rises into the cooling air. It mixes with the scent of earth and river. It becomes part of the evening itself. Children gather near doorways and courtyards. Their energy returns as the heat fades. They play simple games in the narrowing light. Running. Laughing. Chasing shadows that grow longer with each passing minute. Their voices feel lighter than the rest of the day. A reminder that life is not only labor. Even here, even in a world shaped so strongly by work and routine, moments of ease still exist. In a shaded courtyard, an elderly man sits quietly on a low stool. He watches the movement around him. He does not speak much. He simply observes. He has seen many seasons come and go. Many floods of the Nile. Many harvests. Many generations grow from children into adults. To him, time feels less like a line and more like a circle. The same patterns returning again and again. The same river rising and falling. The same fields growing and resting. The same people working and sleeping. He adjusts his linen cloth and leans back slightly against the wall. The warmth of the day is still present, but fading. Soon it will be gone completely. Across the village, a scribe finishes his final records for the day. His hand slows as fatigue settles into his fingers. The papyrus sheet before him is filled with careful writing. Numbers. Names. Notes. He reviews it once more before setting down his brush. Everything appears correct. He exhales softly. The discipline of his work requires attention, but also acceptance. There will always be more to record tomorrow. More grain. More labor. More lives passing through the system he helps maintain. But for now, his responsibility is complete. He gathers his tools and prepares to leave. Outside, the sky deepens into shades of orange and violet. The sun touches the horizon. For a few moments, the entire world seems suspended in warm light. The Nile reflects this glow, stretching it across the water like a final offering of the day. Boats drift slowly back toward shore. Their movements are unhurried. The river carries them gently, as if guiding them home. At the construction site, workers lay down their tools. Stone dust clings to their skin. Their arms and backs ache from the effort of lifting and shaping heavy blocks. Yet there is a sense of completion in their movements. Not final completion, but daily completion. A pause between cycles of labor. One worker wipes his hands on his cloth and looks at the structure rising beside him. It is still incomplete. But it stands more firmly than it did in the morning. That is enough for today. Tomorrow will continue the work. As evening settles fully over the valley, the village transforms once again. Cooking fires glow warmly in courtyards and doorways. The smell of bread, onions, and cooked grain fills the air. Families gather together in small groups. Meals are shared quietly. Simple food. Prepared with care. Eaten with relief. Conversation flows more easily now. The weight of the day begins to loosen from people's shoulders. Stories are told. Small events are remembered. Plans for tomorrow are mentioned briefly, without urgency. Outside, the sky darkens further. The first stars appear again. One by one, they return to their place above Egypt. Familiar. Steady. Unchanging in their rhythm, just like everything below them. A young woman stands at the edge of her home and looks upward for a moment. The stars are bright tonight. Clear against the deepening sky. She feels the cool air of evening on her skin. It brings a sense of relief after the long heat of the day. Inside the home, her family prepares to sleep. Mats are arranged. Lamps are dimmed. The last embers of cooking fires fade into soft red glow. One by one, voices become quieter. Then softer still. Until only the sounds of night remain. The Nile continues flowing in the distance. Its presence is constant, even when unseen. It does not rest. It does not change its rhythm for anyone. It simply moves forward through time and land, shaping everything around it. And as the village finally settles into silence once more, ancient Egypt returns to its nightly stillness. Not empty. Not lifeless. But resting. Waiting. Preparing for another dawn that will come, as it always does, with the same quiet certainty. The cycle will begin again. And life along the river will continue, as it always has, under the endless sky. Night settles again over the Nile Valley, soft and complete, as if the land has finally exhaled after a long day of heat and motion. The village is quiet now. Not silent in an empty way, but in a settled way, like everything has found its place again. Behind mud-brick walls, families lie down on woven mats. Bodies that carried water, cut grain, shaped clay, and lifted stone now rest without movement. The weight of the day leaves them little by little, until only stillness remains. Outside, the river continues its slow passage through darkness. It never changes its rhythm. It never forgets its path. It simply moves forward, as it always has, along the long green ribbon of life between the deserts. A faint wind moves across the surface of the water. Reeds along the bank shift gently, their thin leaves brushing together in soft, almost musical sound. A small dog wanders near the edge of the village, then stops and lies down near a doorway, curling into itself for warmth and familiarity. Even the animals seem to understand the pattern of the night. Rest is part of the order here. Not escape from life, but part of it. Inside one home, a mother lies awake for a moment longer than the others. Her children are asleep beside her. Their breathing is slow and even. She listens to them quietly. There is a calmness in the sound that softens even exhaustion. Her thoughts drift briefly through the day. The grain she ground in the morning. The water she carried from the river. The bread she prepared. The small tasks that filled every hour. Nothing remarkable. Nothing unusual. Just life. She closes her eyes again. Sleep returns gently. Time passes in a soft blur through the night. Above the valley, stars continue their steady movement across the sky. Ancient Egyptians have watched these same stars for generations. They rise and fall in patterns that feel almost like breathing. To some, they mark the seasons. To others, they are simply part of the night's quiet presence. A priest in a distant temple once observed these movements carefully, noting their timing with great attention. But in the villages, people see them in a simpler way. Lights that return every night. Comforting in their regularity. Just like the river. Just like the fields. Just like the morning that always follows darkness. Far away from the sleeping homes, a single traveler walks slowly along a dirt path that follows the Nile. He carries a small bundle on his back. His steps are unhurried. He is not lost. He is simply between places. Travel in ancient Egypt is often measured not in distance alone, but in time and effort. The river guides him. Even at night, its presence is enough to keep direction clear. He pauses for a moment and looks across the water. The opposite bank is barely visible in the darkness. Only faint outlines of trees and land can be seen. He continues walking. There is no rush. The night itself feels patient. Back in the village, a faint glow remains in one small house. An oil lamp burns low beside a scribe's resting place. He has not yet fully surrendered to sleep. His thoughts drift, not toward records or numbers, but toward the simple events of the day. A conversation with a farmer. A delivery of grain. A list completed without error. His role in the world is quiet, but structured. He understands his place within it. When he finally lies down completely, the lamp is extinguished. The last light disappears into darkness. Now the village is fully asleep. Only the river remains in motion. Only the wind remains in motion. Only time itself continues without pause. Before dawn, the air begins to change again. It is subtle at first. A slight cooling. A faint shift in color at the edge of the sky. The night is not ending quickly. It never does. It fades slowly, like breath leaving the body. Birds begin to stir in the reeds. Not yet singing fully. Only small movements, small sounds, as if testing the world before fully waking. A rooster calls once. Then silence returns. Then another call answers somewhere farther away. The village begins to remember itself. Inside homes, bodies shift slightly. Sleep loosens its hold. Not yet gone. Just thinning. A child turns over on a mat and opens their eyes briefly before closing them again. A father sits up slowly, feeling the familiar weight of another day waiting beyond the walls. A mother listens before moving. The rhythm is known. There is no surprise. Only continuation. Outside, the horizon grows lighter. The eastern sky becomes pale. Then warmer. Then touched with faint gold. The Nile reflects this change long before the sun appears. Water always seems to know what is coming. In the fields, early workers begin to move again. They do not speak loudly. Their actions are gentle at first. Gathering tools. Checking paths. Preparing for the return of labor. The day does not begin suddenly here. It unfolds. Step by step. Like everything else in this land. A farmer stands at the edge of his field for a moment before entering. He watches the crops in the early light. They are still. Covered in the softness of morning air. He knows that within hours, this calm will change into activity. Hands moving. Tools working. Water flowing. He adjusts his grip on his tools and steps forward. Another day begins. Across the valley, the same pattern unfolds everywhere. In workshops, fires are lit again. In homes, grain is prepared. At the river, boats are untied and guided into water. At administrative buildings, scribes prepare their materials. Each person returns to their place within the larger structure of life. Not because they are forced in a visible way, but because this is the shape of existence they have always known. It is stable, predictable, familiar, and in its own quiet way, deeply persistent. The sun rises slowly above the horizon. Light spreads across mud-brick homes, irrigation channels, and wide fields of grain. The village is awake once more. Not transformed. Not changed. But continued. The same river flows beside it. The same work waits ahead. The same routines unfold again with gentle certainty. And as the day begins its long movement forward, ancient Egypt remains what it has always been in this quiet story of ordinary lives. A world of repetition. A world of labor. A world where every sunset is followed by another sunrise. And every sunrise leads back, once again, into the steady rhythm of life along the Nile. The morning light settles over the Nile once again, soft and familiar, as if it never truly left. The village is already awake. Not fully energized, not hurried, but awake in the quiet sense that life has resumed its place. Smoke rises gently from cooking fires. Dust moves lightly across narrow paths. The river continues its steady movement beside everything, unchanged by the passing of days, as if time flows differently in its presence. A farmer walks toward the fields with slow, measured steps. His tools rest against his shoulder. He does not think of anything distant or complex. Only the work ahead. Only the soil. Only the rhythm of the day waiting to unfold. Around him, others follow the same path. Their presence is familiar. Faces seen yesterday. and the day before, and likely tomorrow again. In ancient Egypt, repetition is not just part of life. It is life itself. The fields open wide before them under the growing light. Crops sway gently in the early breeze. Water channels reflect the sky in thin, broken lines. Everything feels aligned for a brief moment, as if the world is resting between movements. Then work begins. Slowly at first. Then steadily. Then fully. Hands reach into soil. Tools press into earth. Water is guided into place. The sound of labor returns softly across the valley. Not loud. Not chaotic. But continuous. Like breathing. A group of workers gathers near an irrigation channel that has begun to dry in one section. They kneel in the damp soil, repairing the edges with practiced movements. Mud is pressed back into place. Water is redirected. Small adjustments restore balance. No celebration follows. Only continuation. Because maintenance is not an event here. It is part of daily existence. In a nearby village workshop, the potter is already working again. His wheel turns slowly under steady hands. Clay rises and forms shapes that will later hold water or grain or oil. He does not rush. He does not need to. Time is part of the craft. Each vessel takes as long as it requires. Outside, a group of children passes along the street carrying small containers of water. Their steps are uneven but determined. They move between households, delivering what is needed. Their laughter appears briefly, then fades as they continue their task. Even in movement, there is responsibility. Even in childhood, there is purpose. Farther along the river, a small boat pushes away from shore. Its sail catches a gentle wind. The fisherman aboard adjusts his position without speaking. He knows the water well. It shifts in subtle ways that cannot always be seen. Only felt. The Nile is never fully predictable. But it is always familiar. By midday, the heat begins to rise again. Slowly. Then more strongly. The sun settles overhead, pressing warmth across fields, rooftops, and open ground. Shadows shrink. Movement slows slightly. Workers adjust their pace without stopping. There is no need to announce this change. Everyone feels it at the same time. Under a wide tree near the fields, several farmers gather again in shade. They sit close to the ground, resting in silence. A clay jar of water passes from hand to hand. Each sip is small and deliberate. One man leans back and watches the sky through the leaves above him. Light filters down in broken patterns, moving gently with the wind. For a few minutes, nothing is required. No instruction. No urgency. Only rest. Then, slowly, they rise again. Work resumes. Not because it is demanded in a loud way, but because it is simply the next step in the day. Across Egypt, scribes continue their careful recording. Ink marks accumulate on papyrus. Lists grow longer. Records become more detailed. Everything is measured. Everything is accounted for. The system remains steady, built on written order and repeated procedure. In a shaded administrative room, a scribe pauses and stretches his fingers. They are stained slightly with ink. He glances over his work once more. Correct. Complete for now. He sets it aside and reaches for the next sheet. There is always more to write. Always more to record. Far away, stone workers continue shaping blocks for a structure that will outlast them all. Their movements are coordinated and practiced. Ropes tighten. Stone slides slowly across wooden sleds. Dust rises and drifts away. The work continues without interruption. Not because it is rushed, but because it is ongoing. A process rather than an event. As afternoon begins to soften the harshness of midday heat, the air shifts again. A faint breeze moves through the valley. not strong enough to cool everything, but enough to remind the body that the day is slowly moving forward. Farmers notice it first, then workers in the village, then those along the river. It is a shared awareness, unspoken but understood. The day is turning. A fisherman pulls his boat toward shore. His nets are heavier today. A modest catch, enough to bring back to his family. He does not speak much as he secures his equipment. His movements are calm, efficient. He has done this many times before, and will do it again. Nearby, merchants begin gathering goods for the return journey through the village. Trade is not constant, but it is steady. Grain, cloth, simple tools, all moving slowly between communities connected by the Nile. As evening approaches, the valley begins its familiar transformation once more. The harsh light fades. The air softens. Sound returns in a different way. Less sharp. More gentle. People begin walking home. Not in haste, but in rhythm. The day's labor is behind them again. The village opens into evening life. Cooking fires appear in small courtyards. Smoke rises into the cooling sky. The scent of bread spreads through narrow paths. Families gather once more, sitting together on mats or low stools, sharing simple meals, speaking quietly about the day. A mother places bread in front of her children. A father speaks briefly about work completed. A child listens and slowly grows sleepy. Outside, the sky deepens into warm color, then into blue, then into darkness again. The stars return, one by one, as they always do. A woman stands near her doorway for a moment before going inside. She looks up at the sky. It feels the same as last night, and the night before, and the night before that. Yet still it holds a quiet beauty, a steady presence above a steady world. Inside the home, lamps are lit. Soft light fills the room, then slowly fades as people settle down to rest. The river continues its movement beyond the village. Unchanging, uninterrupted, a constant line through the darkness. And as sleep returns once more to the homes along its banks, ancient Egypt rests again in its familiar rhythm. Waiting for another morning. Waiting for another cycle. Waiting, as always, for the gentle return of light. The night settles comfortably over the Nile Valley once more. The stars hang above the land like small lanterns scattered across a vast dark ceiling. Their light is faint, yet clear enough to reflect softly upon the river below. The Nile moves through the darkness without effort. Its surface ripples gently beneath the moonlight. The water seems almost silver now. Along its banks, reeds sway quietly in the cool night air. Their soft rustling blends with the distant sounds of insects hidden among the plants. Everything feels calm. Everything feels settled. The long day of labor has finally ended. Across the villages, families sleep inside homes built from mud, brick and straw. The walls hold the warmth gathered during the day, though the night air slowly cools them. A child shifts slightly beneath a linen covering. A father turns onto his side after a long day in the fields. A mother rests her tired hands after hours spent grinding grain, carrying water, and preparing food. Their bodies welcome the stillness. Work has left its mark upon every muscle. Now rest slowly eases that burden. Not completely. Tomorrow will bring new aches and new effort. But for these quiet hours, there is peace. Near the edge of one village, an elderly fisherman sits awake beside the river. Sleep comes later to him now. Age has changed many things. His hair has turned gray. His hands move more slowly than they once did. His back stiffens after long days. Yet he still enjoys these moments beside the water. He watches the moon's reflection drift across the current. He listens to the gentle movement of the river. The Nile has been his companion for decades. He has watched floods rise and retreat. He has watched seasons change. He has watched children become adults and adults become elders. Through all of it, the river remained. Always flowing. Always returning. After some time, he rises carefully and makes his way home. The village remains silent. Only his footsteps disturb the dust along the path. Soon he disappears behind a doorway. Darkness returns completely. The night continues. Far above, the stars slowly cross the sky. Hours pass gently. The darkness begins to thin. A pale glow appears at the horizon. Morning approaches once more. The first birds awaken. Small calls emerge from the reeds along the riverbank. The sounds are soft and scattered at first. Then more voices join them. The valley begins waking. The village still sleeps, but not for long. Inside one home, a woman opens her eyes. For a few moments she remains still. The room around her is quiet. The day has not yet begun. These brief moments before dawn are among the calmest she experiences. Soon there will be tasks waiting. Many tasks. But not yet. For now, she listens to the distant river. Eventually she rises. The familiar routine begins again. A fire must be prepared. Water must be collected. Grain must be ground. The cycle continues. Outside, the eastern sky grows brighter. A faint golden color appears above the horizon. The village slowly comes alive. Doors open. Voices emerge. Footsteps sound against packed earth. People greet one another as they begin another ordinary day. Ordinary days are the foundation of Egyptian life. Great events may happen far away. Kings may issue commands. Temples may celebrate important ceremonies. Yet for most people, life is shaped by ordinary mornings like this one. A farmer leaves his home carrying simple tools. The path toward the fields is familiar. He has walked it thousands of times. His father walked it before him. One day his children may walk it too. The route feels almost like part of himself. The fields wait quietly beneath the growing light. Rows of crops stretch toward the horizon. Irrigation channels reflect the pale sky. Everything appears peaceful. Soon the work will begin. For now, there is only stillness. The farmer pauses for a moment before entering the field. He enjoys these early minutes. The air remains cool. The day has not yet become demanding. The land feels calm. Then he begins. Nearby, other farmers do the same. The valley slowly fills with movement. Hands reach toward soil. Tools press into earth. Water is directed through channels. The sounds of labor return. Steady. Measured. Unhurried. In a nearby town, merchants prepare their goods. Baskets are loaded. Animals are fed. Travel plans are discussed quietly. Trade requires patience. Journeys often follow the Nile, connecting villages and larger settlements. Many merchants spend much of their lives moving between familiar destinations. They know which villages need certain goods. They know where markets are busiest. They know where river currents become stronger. Their knowledge comes from experience rather than maps. One merchant adjusts a rope securing his cargo. The journey ahead is not especially long. Still, preparation matters. A small mistake can create unnecessary difficulties later. Attention to detail makes travel easier. Across town, a weaver begins another day of work. Threads stretch across a loom. Her hands move carefully through the familiar process. The rhythm feels almost musical. Pull. Adjust. Tighten. Repeat. The movements are repeated countless times throughout the day. Over weeks and months, cloth gradually appears. The process demands patience. Many Egyptian occupations do. Speed matters less than consistency. Steady effort produces reliable results. The sun climbs higher. The coolness of morning slowly fades. Warmth spreads across the valley. Shadows shorten. Workers continue. A fisherman pushes his boat into the river. Water ripples around the hull. The boat drifts away from shore. He stands quietly for a moment, studying the surface. Experience teaches him where fish are most likely to gather. The river rarely reveals its secrets immediately. Patience is necessary. Fortunately, patience is something most Egyptians learn early. Life itself teaches it. Crops require patience. Construction requires patience. Trade requires patience. Even the Nile teaches patience. The river follows its own schedule. People adjust accordingly. By midday, heat settles heavily across the landscape. The sun shines brightly overhead. Workers feel its weight. Sweat gathers on brows. Clothing clings to skin. The air becomes still. Many seek shade when possible. A group of laborers rests beside a wall. Their conversation remains quiet. Energy is precious during the hottest hours. Water is shared. Food is eaten slowly. Simple meals provide enough strength to continue. Bread, onions, dates, perhaps a little fish. Nothing extravagant. Yet these meals sustain entire communities. After resting briefly, the workers return to their tasks. The day continues. Work continues. The rhythm remains unchanged. Across Egypt, thousands of people follow similar routines. Different occupations. Different villages. Different responsibilities. Yet the overall pattern remains remarkably alike. Morning labor. Midday heat. Evening return. Nighttime rest. Day after day. Year after year. Generation after generation. As afternoon gradually advances, a gentle breeze returns from the river. Workers notice immediately. The air feels slightly easier to breathe. The worst heat begins to fade. Shadows lengthen once more. The promise of evening approaches. And throughout the Nile Valley, ordinary people continue their work beneath the golden light, carrying forward the quiet routines that shape their simple but carefully ordered lives. The afternoon slowly begins to soften across the Nile Valley. The sun remains high enough to fill the land with warmth, yet its sharpest heat has started to fade. Long shadows begin stretching across fields and village paths. The air feels easier to breathe. Workers notice the change immediately. Not because anyone announces it. Not because bells ring or signals are given. They simply feel it. After spending their lives beneath the Egyptian sky, they know the language of the day without needing words. A farmer straightens his back for a moment and looks toward the west. The sunlight has changed. Its color has grown softer. The day is turning toward evening. For now, however, there is still work to finish. He bends once more toward the crops. Nearby, other farmers continue their tasks with the same quiet determination. Some gather harvested grain. Some repair small sections of irrigation channels. Others inspect fields carefully, looking for signs of trouble before darkness arrives. Much of farming is observation. Looking. Waiting. Watching. The land rarely speaks loudly. Its messages are subtle. A change in soil. A change in color. A change in water flow. Those who work the fields learn to notice these details. Their lives depend upon it. Along the river, a fisherman guides his boat toward a familiar stretch of water. The surface of the Nile glows softly beneath the afternoon light. Small ripples spread outward from the boat. The fisherman works without hurry. His hands move through practiced motions. Lower the net. Wait. Watch. Lift. Repeat. The rhythm feels as natural as breathing. For years he has followed these same routines. The river changes from season to season. Yet its presence remains constant. Many Egyptians feel a deep connection to the Nile. Not because they speak about it often, but because every part of life touches it in some way. Food comes from land nourished by its floods. Water comes from its currents. Travel follows its course. Trade depends upon it. The river exists quietly in the background of almost every day. In a nearby village, children help with afternoon chores. One carries water from a communal storage jar. Another gathers pieces of wood for the evening fire. A third helps sweep dust from a courtyard. These responsibilities are small, yet they are important. Children learn early that work is part of life. Not as punishment. Not as hardship alone. Simply as reality. Everyone contributes something. Everyone helps. An elderly grandmother watches from a shaded doorway. Her hands no longer move as quickly as they once did. Her body tires more easily. Still, she remains an important part of the household. She offers advice. She watches younger children. She remembers stories from years long past. In Egypt, age often brings respect. Older people carry memories that younger generations do not possess. Their knowledge helps preserve continuity. The same customs. The same traditions. The same ways of doing things. The world changes slowly here. Very slowly. Far away in a larger town, craftsmen continue working in crowded workshops. A carpenter smooths the surface of a wooden stool. His tools are simple. His movements are careful. Wood is valuable. Mistakes waste precious material. Nearby, another craftsman repairs a damaged storage chest. The smell of fresh cut wood fills the air. The workshop feels warm and busy. Yet no one rushes. The pace remains steady. Most work in Egypt follows this pattern. Not fast. Not slow. Simply consistent. A reliable rhythm sustained hour after hour. The sun gradually lowers. The brightness softens further. People begin thinking about home. About food. About rest. The thought appears quietly in the mind. Not as excitement. Not as escape. Just as the natural next step in the day. A merchant arriving from another village leads his donkey through the dusty streets. The animal walks patiently beneath its load. Baskets filled with goods sway gently from either side. The merchant has traveled since morning. Dust covers his sandals. The journey has been long but familiar. Travelers in Egypt often rely on memory rather than signs. The river provides direction. The landscape provides landmarks. Experience fills in the rest. As he passes through the village, children glance curiously at his cargo. Adults offer greetings. News travels alongside goods. People ask questions about nearby towns. About market prices. About river conditions. Even small bits of information are valuable. Most villagers rarely travel far from home. Stories become their connection to distant places. As evening approaches, a different mood settles over the land. The pressure of labor begins lifting. Not entirely. Tomorrow's work still waits. But for now, the day's responsibilities are nearing completion. Farmers gather their tools. Fishermen secure their boats. Craftsmen clean their workspaces. Scribes finish final records. Across Egypt, countless ordinary people prepare for the same transition. From labor to rest. From daylight to darkness. From activity to quiet. The roads slowly fill with returning workers. Dust rises beneath tired feet. Voices drip through the air. Some conversations are practical. Others are casual. Many are brief. After a long day, energy is limited. People save their strength. The village welcomes them home. Cooking fires burn more brightly now. The smell of bread spreads through narrow streets. The scent mingles with smoke, warm stone, and evening air. For many Egyptians, These familiar smells bring comfort. They signal safety. They signal home. Inside one house, a woman removes fresh loaves from an oven. The bread is warm. The scent fills the room immediately. Children gather nearby. The day's hunger has returned. Meals are simple but deeply appreciated. Bread. Vegetables. Perhaps fish. Perhaps dates. Food does not need to be elaborate to feel satisfying after hours of work. The family gathers together. Conversation unfolds naturally. Small events from the day are shared. A successful catch. A repaired tool. A neighbor's visit. Nothing extraordinary. Yet these ordinary moments create the fabric of daily life. Outside, the sky transforms. Orange fades into red. Red fades into purple. Purple deepens toward blue. The Nile reflects every change. Its surface becomes a moving mirror beneath the evening sky. A farmer pauses on his way home and watches for a moment. The beauty feels familiar. He has seen thousands of sunsets. Yet he still notices them. Perhaps because they mark the end of effort. Perhaps because they arrive so gently. Perhaps because they remind him that rest is near. Darkness slowly spreads across the valley. The stars begin appearing one by one. The first lamps glow behind windows. Children grow sleepy. Conversations become quieter. The pace of life slows once more. Near the riverbank, a young man sits alone for a few moments before returning home. The water moves softly before him. The air feels cool against his skin. The sounds of the village drift faintly through the darkness. He watches the river. It seems unchanged from yesterday. Unchanged from last year. Unchanged from generations ago. There is comfort in that thought. So much of life is uncertain. Harvests vary. Health changes. Fortunes rise and fall. Yet the river remains. Always present. Always flowing. Soon he stands and begins walking home. The village settles deeper into the night. Families prepare for sleep. Lamps are extinguished one after another. Darkness returns to the streets. The stars shine more brightly overhead. And once again, along the banks of the Nile, ordinary Egyptians close their eyes and surrender to rest. Their bodies carry the fatigue of another day. Their minds drift away from responsibilities. The fields can wait until morning. The workshops can wait until morning. The records can wait until morning. For now there is only the quiet breathing of sleeping families, the gentle movement of river water, and the endless stars watching over ancient Egypt as another peaceful night unfolds. The night stretches peacefully over the Nile Valley. The stars seem especially bright now. Without the glare of countless lamps, the sky reveals itself in full. Thousands of points of light shimmer above the river, above the fields, above the sleeping villages scattered along the fertile banks. The air has cooled. The heat that pressed down so heavily during the day has finally drifted away. A gentle breeze moves through the palm trees. Their fronds rustle softly against one another, creating a sound so quiet that it blends naturally with the murmur of the river. Most people are asleep. Inside mud-brick homes, families rest close together. Some sleep on woven mats laid across the floor. Others rest on simple wooden frames covered with linen. Comfort is modest. Yet after a day of labor, even simple sleeping places feel welcome. A farmer lies motionless beside his family. The aches in his shoulders have faded slightly. His hands, rough from years of work, finally remain still. Tomorrow they will return to the fields. Tomorrow they will once again grip tools, guide water, and tend crops. But not now. For these few hours, work no longer asks anything of him. Across the village, a young mother sleeps lightly. She is accustomed to waking whenever a child stirs. Even during rest, responsibility never disappears completely. It waits quietly nearby. Like the river. Like the coming dawn. like the countless routines that shape every day. Outside, the Nile continues its endless journey. The current slips through darkness with patient certainty. No one commands it. No one stops it. It simply follows its path. For thousands of years, people have built their lives around its rhythm. The river floods. The land grows fertile. Crops appear. Families eat. The cycle repeats. Generation after generation. The night deepens. Time passes gently. Eventually, the eastern horizon begins to lighten. At first, the change is almost impossible to notice. A faint softness appears where darkness once met the earth. Then the pale glow slowly grows. Morning approaches again. The first birds awaken among the reeds. Small sounds drift across the riverbank. A fish breaks the surface of the water. Ripples spread outward. The village remains mostly asleep. But not for much longer. Inside one home, an elderly woman opens her eyes. She has always risen early. Even now, after decades of labor, her body follows the same rhythm. She sits quietly for a moment. The room is dim. Everyone else still sleeps. These early moments belong only to her. The silence feels precious. Soon the house will fill with movement. Soon fires will be lit. Soon water will be carried. Soon another day will begin. For now, she simply listens. The distant river. The faint sounds of birds. The soft breathing of family members nearby. The world feels peaceful. Eventually she stands. The day begins. Outside, the village slowly awakens. One door opens. Then another. Then another. People emerge into the cool morning air. The first rays of sunlight touch the tops of palm trees. Long shadows stretch across the ground. The heat has not yet arrived. This is one of the gentlest parts of the day. A baker kneels beside an oven. She prepares dough as she has done countless times before. Her hands move automatically through familiar motions. Mix shape. Press. Wait. The routine requires little thought. Years of repetition have turned every movement into habit. Nearby, smoke begins rising into the morning sky. The smell of fresh bread slowly spreads through the village. People notice it immediately. The scent feels comforting. Familiar. A reminder that another ordinary day has begun. Along the riverbank, fishermen prepare their boats. They untie ropes. Inspect nets. Check supplies. Everything must be ready before departure. One fisherman pauses and looks across the water. The Nile reflects the growing light of dawn. The sight never grows old. He has seen it thousands of times. Still, he notices its quiet beauty. Perhaps because it signals possibility. A new day. A new catch. A new journey across familiar waters. Soon the boats drift away from shore. Their movement is smooth and unhurried. The river carries them gently forward. Back in the fields, farmers begin arriving one by one. The land glows beneath the morning sun. Dew clings lightly to some plants. The air still feels pleasant. Work begins before the heat becomes too strong. A farmer examines the soil carefully. Conditions look good. Water levels appear steady. The crops seem healthy. Such observations matter greatly. Small changes can become larger problems later. Experience teaches people to notice details. The color of leaves. The texture of soil. The flow of water. Nothing is ignored. The success of an entire season may depend upon careful attention. Nearby, a young boy follows his father through the field. He watches closely. Learning happens constantly in Egypt. Not only in schools. Not only through scribes. Most knowledge passes directly from one person to another. A father demonstrates. A son observes. A mother teaches. A daughter learns. Skills travel through generations like water through irrigation channels. Steady. Continuous. Reliable. As the morning advances, the village becomes fully active. Workshops open. Markets begin receiving visitors. Animals move through dusty streets. Voices fill the air. Life unfolds according to familiar patterns. A potter starts shaping clay. A carpenter repairs furniture. A merchant organizes goods. Each person returns to a role already understood. The structure of society feels remarkably stable. Most people know exactly what tomorrow will require. And the day after that. And the day after that. There is little uncertainty about daily responsibilities. That predictability brings both comfort and limitation. Life follows established paths. Choices often remain narrow. Tradition guides behavior. Custom shapes expectations. People rarely imagine completely different futures. Instead, they focus on fulfilling present duties. The sun climbs steadily higher. Warmth spreads across the valley. The coolness of dawn begins fading away. Workers adjust naturally. Some move into shaded areas when possible. Others drink water more frequently. The rhythm of labor changes slightly. Not stopping. Simply adapting. In a workshop near the center of town, a weaver continues her work. Threads stretch across a loom. Her fingers move carefully through the pattern. Hours pass in quiet concentration. The cloth grows slowly. Row by row. Thread by thread. The process requires patience. So much of Egyptian life requires patience. The river teaches patience. Farming teaches patience. Craftsmanship teaches patience. Even the passing of time feels patient here. Nothing rushes. Nothing demands immediate results. Effort accumulates gradually. Like water shaping stone. Like grain filling storage jars. Like years shaping a human life. Outside, the sunlight grows brighter. The village settles into another ordinary day. Another day much like countless others before it. And throughout the Nile Valley, ordinary Egyptians continue their quiet routines beneath the rising sun, carrying forward lives shaped by work, tradition, family, and the steady presence of the river that guides everything around them. The morning continues to unfold across the Nile Valley. The sun rises steadily above the eastern horizon, casting a warm golden light over the fields and villages. What began as cool dawn air slowly transforms into the familiar warmth of another Egyptian day. Along the riverbanks, life settles deeper into its daily rhythm. Boats move quietly through the water. Farmers work among the crops. Children carry out small responsibilities given to them by parents and grandparents. Everywhere, people move with a sense of purpose that feels calm rather than hurried. The Nile glistens beneath the growing sunlight. Its surface reflects the sky in shifting patterns of blue and gold. A fisherman stands in his boat, checking a net he cast earlier in the morning. The river is calm today. Only small ripples disturb its surface. He works without speaking. There is no need for conversation. The motions themselves are familiar companions. Lift. Check. Adjust. Lower. Repeat. The steady routine feels almost meditative. Nearby, another fisherman guides his boat closer to the reeds along the shore. Birds scatter briefly into the air before settling elsewhere. The sounds of wings fade quickly. Then silence returns. The river always seems capable of returning to silence. No matter how much activity appears upon its waters, calmness eventually settles again. Back on land, the fields are becoming brighter. Farmers move among rows of crops with practiced efficiency. A man pauses beside an irrigation channel and watches water flow through it. The stream moves exactly where it should. The sight brings quiet satisfaction. So much depends on these channels. Without them, fields would dry beneath the relentless sun. Without them, harvests would suffer. Water is life here. Everyone understands that. A younger worker joins him. Together they inspect a small section of the channel wall that has begun to weaken. The repair is simple. A little mud. A little effort. A little time. Soon the problem is solved. The men return to their tasks. Small repairs like these happen constantly. Many parts of Egyptian life depend upon maintenance. Walls require repair. Tools require repair. Boats require repair. Irrigation channels require repair. Nothing remains useful forever without attention. People accept this naturally. Maintenance is simply another form of work. In the village, ovens continue baking bread. The smell drifts through narrow streets warmed by sunlight. A woman removes several loaves from the oven and places them carefully on a cloth. Steam rises from the fresh bread. The scent fills the small courtyard. Her children glance toward it hopefully. They know breakfast is nearly ready. Simple meals sustain much of the population. Bread remains at the center of daily life. So common. So ordinary. Yet so essential. Many people begin and end each day with it. The process of creating bread demands effort long before it reaches the table. Grain must be planted, harvested, transported, ground into flour, mixed into dough, baked over fire. Every loaf represents countless hours of labor spread across many hands. Perhaps because of this, food is rarely taken for granted. Across the village, artisans continue their work. A potter shapes clay vessels that will eventually hold water, oil, grain, and other necessities. The wheel spins steadily beneath his hands. The clay responds to gentle pressure. A narrow neck appears. A smooth curve forms. A simple vessel gradually emerges. The process feels almost magical to an observer. Yet to the potter, it is routine. He has shaped thousands of vessels throughout his life. Skill grows quietly through repetition. Nearby, a carpenter works beneath a shaded shelter. The scent of wood drifts through the air. His tools move carefully across the surface of a stool he is repairing. The work requires concentration. Mistakes are difficult to undo. Wood is valuable. Every piece matters. Patience guides each movement. The morning hours pass steadily. The village remains active. Animals move through dusty paths. Donkeys carry supplies between homes and workshops. Goats wander through courtyards. Chickens search for food near walls and fences. The sounds of daily life blend together into a gentle background rhythm. Voices. Footsteps. Tools. Animals. Wind. Nothing dominates. Everything exists together. Near the center of the settlement, a merchant arranges goods beneath a simple shelter. Baskets of produce sit beside rolls of linen cloth. Small tools are displayed nearby. People stop occasionally to examine what is available. Transactions are simple, practical, focused on everyday needs. Most people are not seeking luxury. They are seeking usefulness. A stronger basket. A replacement tool. Extra grain. Additional cloth. The economy of daily life revolves around necessities. The merchant understands this. His success depends upon understanding what people truly need. As the sun climbs higher, the heat begins to strengthen. The coolness of morning gradually disappears. Shadows shrink. Workers become more aware of the growing warmth. No one seems surprised. This happens every day. The sun follows its path. People adapt. A farmer removes his head covering briefly and wipes sweat from his brow. The work continues. But the pace changes slightly. Movements become more measured. Energy is conserved. Water becomes increasingly important. Nearby, several workers pause beneath a tree. The shade offers welcome relief. They drink from a shared jar and rest for a few moments. Conversation remains quiet. No one feels the need to fill every silence. Many Egyptians spend long hours working beside the same people. Words become less necessary over time. Familiarity creates comfort. A glance. A gesture. A simple nod. Often these are enough. Across the valley, scribes continue their duties inside cooler rooms protected from direct sunlight. Papyrus sheets lie neatly arranged before them. Records grow steadily throughout the day. Numbers. Names. Measurements. The administrative system depends upon careful documentation. Much of Egypt's organization rests upon these records. Grain collected. Labor assigned. Supplies distributed. Everything must be written. The work lacks the physical strain of farming or construction. Yet it demands concentration. Hour after hour of careful attention. A mistake in a record can create confusion later. Accuracy matters. One scribe pauses briefly and stretches his hand. His fingers feel stiff. Then he returns to writing. Outside, the village continues moving through another ordinary day. The sun shines brightly overhead. The Nile flows steadily nearby. Fields ripple gently beneath the wind. Work continues. Responsibility continues. Life continues. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. But quietly. Steadily. Just as it has for generations. And as the warmth of midday slowly approaches once more, the people of ancient Egypt remain woven into the familiar patterns that shape their simple but carefully ordered lives beside the eternal river. By the time the sun reaches the middle of the sky, a heavy warmth settles across the Nile Valley. The light is bright now. Almost white above the fields. The shadows that stretched long during the morning have become small and narrow, gathering beneath trees, walls, and people. The air feels slower. Even the sounds of the village seem softer beneath the midday heat. Across the fields, farmers continue working, though their movements have changed. Earlier in the day, they moved with the energy that comes from cool air and fresh morning light. Now they work more carefully. More steadily. Each movement is measured. Each task is completed without wasted effort. A man carrying a bundle of reeds pauses beneath a tree. The shade is thin but welcome. He lowers the bundle onto the ground and sits for a few moments. Nearby, another worker drinks from a clay jar. The water is cool compared to the air around them. Not cold. Nothing in this land is truly cold for very long. But cool enough to feel refreshing. The men sit quietly. No one seems eager to speak. The heat encourages stillness. Words require energy. Silence does not. In many places throughout Egypt, midday becomes a time of patience. Not complete rest. Work still continues. But people learn to move with the day rather than against it. Fighting the heat accomplishes little. Working alongside it accomplishes much more. Along the Nile, fishermen guide their boats through calm water. The river reflects the bright sky above. Sunlight dances across the surface in countless tiny flashes. A fisherman shields his eyes and looks toward the shore. The reeds sway gently in the warm breeze. Birds stand motionless in the shallows. Waiting. Watching. The fisherman understands that patience belongs to the river as much as it belongs to people. Everything here seems willing to wait. Fish wait beneath the water. Farmers wait for harvest. Merchants wait for travelers. Children wait to grow older. The Nile itself waits for no one, yet it never appears rushed. Its steady movement teaches a quiet lesson every day. Continue. Keep moving. Do not hurry. In a village workshop, the potter works beside an open doorway where a small breeze occasionally enters. The clay feels cool against his hands. That coolness is pleasant in the heat of the afternoon. Around him stand shelves filled with completed vessels. Large jars for grain. Smaller containers for oil. Simple cups. Bowls. Storage pots. Each one was shaped by hands that understood repetition. The potter rarely thinks about the final destination of these objects. Soon they will leave his workshop. They will become part of other people's lives. A family will store grain in one. Another family will carry water in another. A merchant may transport goods using several more. His work spreads quietly throughout the community, much like the work of countless others. No one stands entirely alone in this world. Every task connects to another. Every effort supports something larger. Across the village, a woman sits in the shade of her courtyard weaving linen. The loom stands before her. Threads stretch tightly from one side to the other. Her fingers move with practiced precision. The work requires attention. Yet it also allows room for thought. As she works, she watches her children playing nearby. One child draws patterns in the dust. Another follows a chicken around the courtyard with great seriousness. The youngest sits beside a wall, fascinated by a small stone. Simple things hold attention easily in this world. Life moves at a pace that allows people to notice details. The shape of a leaf. The sound of water pouring into a jar. The pattern of sunlight across a wall. The smell of fresh bread cooling nearby. Nothing feels rushed past. Nothing disappears too quickly. In another home, bread prepared earlier in the morning rests beneath cloth coverings. The smell remains rich and comforting. A grandmother breaks off a small piece and hands it to a child. The child accepts it with quiet happiness. Bread is ordinary. Yet it is deeply valued. Many of the most important things in life are ordinary. Water. Food. Shade. Rest. Family. The people of Egypt understand this well. Their lives are built upon these simple foundations. As the afternoon continues, the village settles into a slower rhythm. The roads are less crowded now. Most people remain close to their work or close to their homes. Travel becomes less appealing beneath the strongest sunlight. Even animals seek shelter. Goats gather beside walls. Dogs sleep beneath shaded corners. Donkeys stand patiently, conserving energy. The entire landscape seems to breathe more slowly. Farther down the Nile, a group of laborers works on a storehouse intended to protect grain from moisture and pests. The building rises gradually from the earth. Mud bricks are carried into place. Walls grow taller little by little. The workers understand that such structures matter deeply. A successful harvest means little if grain cannot be stored safely. Much of Egyptian life revolves around preparation. Preparing for floods. Preparing for drought. Preparing for future seasons. Preparing for tomorrow. The future is always approaching, and wise people make room for it before it arrives. One laborer wipes dust from his face and glances toward the horizon. The sunlight has changed almost imperceptibly. It is still bright. Still warm. Yet something has shifted. The day is beginning its slow turn toward evening. There is comfort in recognizing this. Every difficult part of the day eventually passes. Every hot afternoon eventually softens. Every long period of labor eventually gives way to rest. This certainty helps people endure. A farmer working beside an irrigation channel notices the same change. The shadows have begun to lengthen again. Only slightly. But enough to see. He adjusts his position and continues working. The end of the day is not yet near. Still, it is coming. And everyone knows it. Back in the village, merchants organize their goods. Some items have been traded. Others remain. A few travelers arrive from neighboring settlements. Their clothing carries dust from the road. Their animals move slowly after long journeys. News travels with them. Small pieces of information. Conditions along the river. Market activity. The state of crops in distant areas. Such conversations unfold naturally. People gather briefly. They listen. They ask questions. Then life resumes. The information becomes part of the quiet flow of community knowledge. As afternoon drifts onward, the Nile continues shining beneath the sun. Its waters remain calm. Its current remains steady. Its presence remains constant. Generation after generation, it watches the same scenes unfold along its banks. Children growing. Families working. Fields changing with the seasons. Villages rising and enduring. The river remembers none of it and all of it at once. And as the light gradually softens across the valley, ancient Egypt continues its patient rhythm beneath the warm sky, moving gently toward another peaceful evening beside the timeless waters of the Nile. The afternoon light begins to soften again over the Nile Valley. It is a slow change, almost unnoticeable at first. The brightness that once pressed heavily across the fields now feels slightly less sharp, as if the world itself is loosening its grip on the day. Long shadows return beneath trees and walls. The heat is still present, but it no longer feels like it is holding everything in place. Movement becomes easier again. Farmers lift their heads more often as they work. Workers begin to think, quietly, about the journey home. Not in a rushed way. Not with urgency. Just as a natural thought that arrives when the sun begins to shift. Across the fields, hands continue their work among the crops. Sickles move through grain in steady rhythm. Bundles are gathered and placed carefully on the ground. The harvest does not stop for reflection. It continues because it must continue. Yet even here, in the middle of effort, there is a sense of nearing completion for the day. Along the river, the water glows under the softer angle of light. The Nile never changes its direction, but it changes its appearance with every hour. Now it looks less like a bright mirror and more like a deep, moving ribbon of gold and blue. A fisherman pulls his net slowly back into the boat. The weight of it tells him what the day has given. Some days are generous. Some days are quiet. He has learned not to expect too much from any single moment. The river provides in its own time. And so he works with it, not against it. Nearby, another boat drifts toward shore. The oars move with less effort now. The current seems to help rather than resist. The fisherman glances toward the village as it becomes more visible in the distance. Smoke rises faintly from cooking fires. That sight alone signals the approach of evening. Back in the fields, a farmer pauses beside an irrigation channel. Water still flows steadily through it, though its surface now reflects the orange tones of the lowering sun. He kneels and touches the edge of the channel. The mud is warm. Slightly damp. Still holding the memory of the morning's work. Everything here carries memory in a quiet way. The land remembers water. The tools remember hands. The paths remember footsteps. Even people seem shaped by repetition until their movements feel like part of the landscape itself. A group of workers begins walking back toward the village. Their tools rest on shoulders. Their bodies move slowly, tired but steady. No one speaks much. There is no need. The sound of footsteps along the dusty path is enough. Each step brings them closer to home. Closer to rest. Closer to the part of the day where effort is no longer required. In a shaded courtyard, a woman finishes grinding grain. The stone beneath her hands is worn smooth from years of use. Her movements slow as she completes the final portion. Flour gathers in a small pile beside her. She looks at it for a moment before standing. The work is never truly finished. It only pauses. Bread will be baked again tomorrow. Grain will be ground again tomorrow. Water will be carried again tomorrow. But for now, this task is complete. She wipes her hands and steps toward the doorway. Outside, the air feels slightly cooler. Not by much. But enough to notice. the village begins to shift again. This shift is subtle. It is not marked by sound or announcement. It happens gradually, across many small actions. People finishing tasks, gathering tools, returning from distant fields, closing workshops, preparing evening fires. One by one, the village moves toward home. A child runs down a narrow path carrying a small bundle of sticks for firewood. He slows as he nears his house. Inside, the smell of food already cooking greets him. He places the bundle carefully beside the doorway. Then sits for a moment, watching the activity inside. Even children recognize this time of day. The transition from work to rest. From heat to coolness. From effort to comfort. In another part of the village, a scribe finishes writing his final notes for the day. The lines on the papyrus are neat and consistent. He reviews them briefly. Then sets down his reed pen. His hand feels stiff from hours of careful writing. He flexes his fingers slowly. There is always more to record. But not today. Today is complete. He gathers his materials and steps outside. The evening air meets him gently. Across the valley, the sun lowers further toward the horizon. Its light spreads in long, soft bands across the land. Fields glow in warm tones. Roofs reflect fading gold. The Nile becomes a shifting path of light and shadow. Boats return to shore. Animals move toward shelter. Voices grow warmer and more frequent as people gather near their homes. Cooking fires brighten. The smell of food becomes stronger. Bread, grain, cooked vegetables, sometimes fish from the river. Simple meals, prepared with care. Families sit together in courtyards or inside small rooms. They eat slowly. They speak softly. They share the small details of their day. Nothing grand. Nothing dramatic. Just life, unfolding in familiar patterns. Outside, the sky changes again. Orange fades into deeper red. Then into purple. Then into the first signs of night. Stars begin to reappear. One by one. Quiet and steady, as always. A man stands near the edge of the village for a moment before going inside his home. He watches the sky. He listens to the last sounds of the day. The distant river. The faint movement of wind through reeds. The soft voices of neighbors returning home. Everything feels settled. Everything feels known. Then he turns and steps inside. The doorway closes behind him. And the village gently transitions into night once more. The Nile continues flowing through the darkness beyond, carrying the memory of the day forward without interruption, as ancient Egypt rests again beneath the widening sky of stars, waiting for another quiet morning that will arrive just as surely as all the ones before it. Night returns fully over the Nile Valley. The last traces of sunset fade away, leaving only deep blue and then darkness. Above it, the stars spread wide and steady, filling the sky with a quiet, unblinking presence. The river moves beneath them, unchanged. Its surface is darker now, but it still carries a soft reflection of the heavens. In places where the moonlight reaches it, the water turns briefly silver again, then fades back into shadow. Along the banks, the reeds sway gently in the night wind. Their movement is small, almost invisible, but constant enough to remind the sleeping world that the river is alive. The villages are still. Most homes are already dark. Lamps have been extinguished. Fires have burned down to quiet embers. Only a few faint glows remain behind small windows, and even those fade one by one as sleep deepens. Inside a modest home near the fields, a farmer lies on his back, listening to the quiet around him. His body feels heavy in the way only honest labor can create. Not pain exactly. Just a deep, familiar tiredness. His thoughts drift slowly, without direction. The field he worked earlier. The way the soil felt under his hands. The sound of water moving through the channel. These memories are not sharp. They are soft, like impressions left behind after a long day. Beside him, his family sleeps without movement. Their breathing is calm and steady. The room feels warm despite the cooling air outside. Life continues even in rest. In another part of the village, a young woman turns slightly in her sleep. Her hands rest loosely near her face. Earlier in the evening she helped prepare food, grind grain, and tend the fire. Now her body releases that effort. Muscles relax. Breathing deepens. The work of the day is already becoming distant. Outside, the Nile flows through the night as it always does. It does not change its pace for darkness or light. It moves the same way it has moved for countless generations. Farmers once looked at this river and built their lives around it. Not in a single decision, but slowly. Over time. Until every part of existence followed its rhythm. Even sleep. Even waking. Farther along the river, a small boat remains tied to a post near the shore. It rocks gently with the water's movement. Inside the boat, fishing nets lie folded and still. A fisherman sleeps in a nearby hut, his body resting after a long day on the water. He will return again tomorrow. And the day after that. As he always does. Because the river always calls him back. In a quiet corner of the village, an elderly man sits outside his home for a final moment before sleep. He is not working now. Not speaking. Only watching. The night air is cool against his skin. He looks out toward the faint outline of the fields. Everything there feels still and distant. He has seen many nights like this. Too many to count. Yet each one feels slightly different in its silence. He listens to the sound of the river beyond the village. That steady presence has remained unchanged throughout his entire life. It outlived many people he once knew. It carried floods and calm seasons alike. It shaped the land beneath it. And it continues, without hesitation. Eventually, he rises slowly and steps inside. The door closes gently behind him. The village becomes even quieter. The night deepens further. Time passes in a soft, almost unnoticeable flow. Stars shift slowly across the sky. The moon moves toward its next position. And somewhere along the river, a breeze passes through the reeds, making them bend and whisper for a moment before becoming still again. Then, gradually, the first hint of change appears at the horizon. Not yet morning. Only the faintest suggestion that darkness is beginning to loosen its hold. The eastern sky grows slightly lighter. A thin, pale line forms where night meets the edge of the world. The village is still asleep. But the day is already preparing itself. Birds begin to stir faintly among the reeds. A few early sounds break the silence. Then fade again. The river reflects the change without reacting to it. It has seen this transition countless times. Night becoming morning. Morning becoming day. Day becoming night. Endless cycles layered one upon another. Inside the homes, people remain asleep for a little while longer. Their bodies rest deeply now, reaching the quietest part of sleep just before waking. A child turns over softly on a mat. A mother breathes slowly, steady and calm. A farmer shifts slightly, unaware that morning is approaching once more. Everything waits. Not in tension, but in readiness. As if the world itself understands what must come next. The horizon brightens again, just a little more. A soft glow begins to spread outward. Not strong yet. Not complete. But enough to signal the return of light. And as ancient Egypt rests in this brief, peaceful pause between night and morning, the Nile continues flowing through it all, carrying both darkness and light with the same gentle, unbroken rhythm. The first light of dawn returns slowly over the Nile Valley. It does not arrive all at once. It spreads gradually, as if the world is remembering itself again after a long, quiet pause. The sky shifts from deep darkness to a soft gray blue. Then, almost without notice, pale gold begins to appear along the horizon. The river reflects it immediately. Even before the sun is visible, the Nile begins to glow in thin, shimmering lines of light. The village is still mostly asleep. But the change has already begun. Inside the homes, sleep becomes lighter. Not yet waking. Just thinning. A farmer turns slightly in his sleep, his breathing steady. His body knows this rhythm without thought. Nights end. Days begin. Work returns. Beside him, his family remains still for a few more moments, held gently in the last warmth of rest. Outside, the air feels cooler than it will be later. There is a softness to early morning in Egypt. A quiet that carries both calm and anticipation. The reeds along the river move slightly in the breeze. Birds begin to stir more actively now. Small calls break through the silence in scattered places along the water. Then more voices join them. Still soft. Still scattered. But growing. In one home, a woman opens her eyes and lies still for a moment. She does not rush to move. She listens first. The faint sounds of morning outside. The distant river. The subtle shifting of life beginning again. She sits up slowly. The room around her is dim, but no longer fully dark. Morning is arriving. As it always does. She reaches for a clay jar and prepares to begin the day's first tasks. Water must be drawn. Fire must be started. Bread will soon need to be made. The routine is familiar enough that it requires no thought. Only action. Outside, the village begins to awaken more fully. A door opens. Then another. Then another. Soft footsteps appear along the narrow paths between homes. The first smoke of cooking fires rises into the cooling air. The scent of yesterday's embers mixing with the promise of fresh bread. Along the riverbank, fishermen prepare quietly. Their movements are slow, careful, practiced. Ropes are checked. Nets are lifted and inspected. Boats are pulled closer to the water's edge. Everything is done without conversation at first. The morning does not demand noise. Only readiness. One fisherman pauses and looks toward the water. The Nile is already brighter now. Not yet fully lit by the sun. But no longer hidden in darkness. It moves steadily, as it always has. Unchanged by the night that just passed. Unchanged by the day that is about to begin. He steps into his boat. The wood shifts slightly beneath him. A familiar sound. A familiar feeling. The river accepts him without resistance. As it always does. Farther inland, farmers begin walking toward the fields again. The paths are the same as yesterday. And the day before that. And the day before that. Dust rises softly beneath their steps. Tools rest across shoulders. The fields wait in the distance, quiet and still under the growing light. A young boy walks beside his father. He carries a small bundle of tools. Not heavy. But important. He watches the land carefully. Learning without being told. The rhythm of walking. The rhythm of working. The rhythm of returning. Everything becomes part of him slowly, like water absorbed into soil. In the village center, a baker has already begun working. The oven is warm now. Dough is being shaped again. The smell of bread begins to spread through nearby streets. It mixes with smoke and morning air. A simple, familiar comfort. People notice it as they step outside. It marks the beginning of another ordinary day. Nothing unusual. Nothing dramatic. Just life continuing. In a shaded administrative building, a scribe sits with his materials laid out neatly before him. Papyrus. Ink. Brush. He has not yet begun writing. For a brief moment, he simply observes the room. Quiet. Orderly. Familiar. Then he lowers his gaze and begins again. Records must continue. Names. Quantities. Notes from yesterday's activity. The structure of life depends on these small written details. Without them, everything would drift. But with them, order remains. Outside, the sun finally appears above the horizon. Its light spreads across the valley in a wide, gentle arc. The Nile catches it immediately, turning bright and golden. Fields awaken under the warmth. Villages brighten. Shadows shorten. The day fully begins. Work resumes everywhere at once, not as something new, but as something continuing. Farmers enter fields. Fishermen move deeper into the river. Craftsmen open workshops. Merchants prepare goods. Children begin their small tasks. The entire valley moves as one quiet system. Not hurried. Not chaotic. But steady. Predictable. Endlessly repeating. And as the morning settles fully over ancient Egypt once more, the river flows on beside it all, carrying light, time, and memory together in its slow and constant movement through the land. The morning settles more deeply across the Nile Valley. Now the sun is fully above the horizon, spreading a steady warmth that slowly replaces the cool softness of dawn. Light reaches into every corner of the land, touching fields, rooftops, riverbanks, and narrow village paths. Everything becomes clearer under it. The outlines of daily life return in full. Farmers are already spread across the fields, moving in familiar patterns that have been repeated for generations. Some bend low over crops. Others walk slowly along irrigation channels, checking the flow of water. The land responds quietly to their presence. Not with sound, but with result. Water moves where it is guided. Soil receives what it is given. Crops continue their slow growth under the Egyptian sun. A man pauses and straightens his back for a moment. The ache in his body is familiar now. Not sharp. Just constant. A reminder of yesterday's labor and the many yesterdays before it. He looks across the field. Everything appears stable. That stability matters more than anything else. A good day is not a surprising day. It is a predictable one. Nearby, a group of workers carefully carries baskets of harvested grain toward a storage area. Their steps are slow but steady. The weight is distributed carefully between them. Each movement is coordinated without need for instruction. They have done this many times. They will do it many times again. At the storage structure, the grain is poured into large containers. The sound is soft but steady. A quiet flow of harvest turning into security. Into food for later. Into survival for the coming months. Nothing here is wasted. Everything is accounted for. In a nearby village workshop, the rhythm of craft continues. A potter shapes another vessel from wet clay. His hands move without hesitation. The wheel turns beneath his control. Each curve is formed slowly, with patience built over years of repetition. Around him, finished pots stand in rows, drying in the morning air. Some will be used for water. Some for grain. Some for oil. Each one will leave the workshop and become part of another household's daily routine. That is the nature of his work. Creation that disappears into usefulness. Not decoration. Not display. Just purpose. Outside, the village becomes warmer as the sun climbs higher. Shadows shrink again. The air grows heavier. Movement slows slightly in response, though work never truly stops. People adjust rather than pause. A fisherman along the river tightens his grip on the oars as he steers his boat through gentle currents. The water reflects bright light now, almost blinding in places. He lowers his gaze slightly, focusing instead on movement and direction. Fish are not always visible. The river hides as much as it reveals. Patience remains essential. He casts his net once more. Then waits. The Nile does not respond quickly. It never does. but it always responds eventually. That understanding shapes every action taken upon its surface. On the riverbank, reeds sway lightly in the breeze. A few birds move between them, searching for small disturbances in the water. Their presence feels almost temporary. They arrive. They leave. They return again. Just like everything else in this environment. Farther inland, a group of laborers continues construction on a storehouse. Mud bricks are carried one by one and placed carefully into rising walls. The structure grows slowly but steadily. Each layer depends on the one below it. There is no rushing this work. If it is done poorly, the entire purpose fails. So the workers proceed with quiet discipline. One brick. Then another. Then another. The repetition becomes almost rhythmic. Like breathing. Like the river's flow. Inside the village, merchants prepare small stalls along a dusty path where people pass throughout the day. Baskets of grain sit beside simple tools. Linen cloth is folded neatly for display. Trade is modest but constant. People come when they need something. They leave when they have what they require. There is little excess. Only function. A woman stops briefly to exchange a few words and select a small item she needs for her household. The interaction is simple. Direct. No unnecessary language. Then she continues on her way. Life in Egypt moves through countless small exchanges like this. Quiet moments that support larger systems. As midday begins to approach, the brightness increases again. The sun becomes more intense. Heat spreads across open fields and village rooftops. People feel it gradually building, the way they always do. Not sudden. Not surprising. Just steady. A familiar pressure in the air. Farmers begin adjusting their pace. Work continues, but with more frequent pauses. Water is shared from clay jars. Shade becomes more valuable. Under a large tree near the fields, several workers gather briefly to rest. They sit close to the ground, leaning against trunks and woven bundles of reeds. No one speaks much. There is comfort in shared silence. A small moment of relief before returning to labor. One man closes his eyes for a few seconds. Not sleeping fully. Just resting. Just letting the heat pass without resistance. Then he opens his eyes again. The work will continue. And so he stands. Across the valley, scribes continue their careful writing inside shaded rooms. The steady scratch of reed brush on papyrus marks the passage of time. Numbers are recorded. Names are added. Lists are updated. The administrative rhythm never stops. It simply moves between hands and hours. Outside their windows, the village continues under the bright sky. Movement. Work. Rest. Return. The cycle remains constant. Unchanging in its structure, even as small details shift from day to day. And as the sun holds its place high above ancient Egypt, the Nile continues flowing beside it all, carrying the lives of farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, and scribes forward in its quiet, endless rhythm through the land that depends upon it. Night returns one last time over the Nile Valley. The day slowly lets go of the land, the same way it always does, without rush and without sound. Light fades from the fields, from the riverbanks, from the rooftops of mud brick homes that have held generations of quiet lives. The river remains. Even now, even here, it continues moving through the darkness, carrying the last reflections of the sky like faint memories on water. In the villages, the final traces of activity come to rest. Cooking fires dim into soft red embers. Voices fade into the comfort of homes. Doors close gently, one by one, until only silence remains between the narrow paths. Inside these homes, families lie down to sleep. Bodies that worked through heat, dust, and repetition now settle into stillness. A farmer rests with tired hands folded near his chest. A fisherman sleeps with the memory of water still in his muscles. A mother lies beside her children, listening to their slow breathing until her own thoughts drift away. A scribe's ink has dried on the day's final records, now left safely behind for tomorrow to continue. Everything pauses. Not because it is finished, but because it is time to rest. Outside, the Nile carries on beneath the stars. It does not need rest. It never has. It moves through night and day the same way it always has, shaping the land quietly, shaping the lives beside it even more quietly still. The reeds along its banks shift in the wind. The stars reflect in its surface. Time passes without urgency. And in that endless flow, everything human feels both small and deeply connected. Generations have lived beside this river. Generations have worked its soil, crossed its waters, and built their days around its rhythm. They have risen with the sun and rested with the stars. They have known hardship and ease, labor and pause, hunger and plenty. Yet through all of it, life remains simple in its structure. Work. Rest. Return. Again and again. As the night deepens fully, even thought itself begins to soften. The village becomes still in a way that feels complete, as if the land and its people are finally breathing at the same pace. No more movement. No more sound. Only the river continues, steady and unbroken, through the ancient darkness. And above it all, the stars remain, unchanged, watching over everything that came before and everything that will come after. The Nile flows on. And the world rests beside it. Slow. Quiet. Endless. Until morning returns once more.